you miss me? I've been out of it comatose, but the depression is over.
Welcome back to Controlled Burns, the weekly hobby list podcast for me, Andrew Burns, or Slow Burn from Wildfire Gaming. I never really know what to call it. The reason I went with the Slow Burn tagline is because the majority of our listeners are listening through YouTube, I think.
Hmm.
Which is embarrassing to say if you've seen our YouTube views. But anyway, Reagan, my wife, is here this week.
Well, we just gotta pick. Like, if you get a nickname, I need a nickname. And
Well, whenever we're doing true Wildfire Gaming stuff, I am Slow Burn
sure,
because
but
Sean was Tree Trunk Sean.
it's kind of lame that you
I
get
think
a
I
cool
came up with that, I think.
fake name and I just get Reagan.
Well, what would you want?
Uh, Light of my life, apple of my eye, the greatest woman you'll ever hear.
Okay, well, we can circle back on that, but we've taken a bit of a
Leave your suggestions in the comments.
we've taken a bit of a detour, not only in the intro here, but also from our Game of Thrones series, because of our discussion with The Last of Us, basically. And then I did have the little tangent where I finally got back to video games for, believe it or not, for a week where I talked about the top 25 video game twists.
Mm,
Not that Reagan has heard that.
I have not.
But anyway, after weeks of preparation, I remember I was started working on this podcast whenever I was in Houston. I guess that was mid-April. Um, we are back for our Game of Thrones series with season 5 of Game of Thrones. Definitely an interesting season of television with many highs and also a fair number of lows.
Yes, spoiler warning. We will spoil things for the show up through season 5,
Obviously.
and we'll talk about the books up through about a quarter of the way through
But-
Storm of Swords, where Andrew is
The
still
books
stuck.
are worthless. They're not relevant at all for how far we are at this point, I don't think. I'm looking forward to breaking it all down and discussing where this season ranks because I really had a time thinking about where I ended up landing it of the first 5 seasons. So
Okay.
we get into it. But before we do, I'll remind you that you can write into the show at ControlledBurnes with an ES at gmail.com. Okay, so episode.
Oh, label your spoilers.
Label your spoilers. Episode 1 is The Wars to Come. And it starts with Cersei getting her reading from who I call Calanthe the Witch, because she just looks like Calanthe from The Witcher.
That's right.
So yeah.
But it's really Maggie the Frog.
I don't really care that much about that sequence, but I do think that little girl that plays Cersei does a really excellent job.
Probably
She
should
really
have cut it if
captures-
they weren't going to follow through on it.
Sure.
but-
But they really that little girl really, or teenager, whatever she was, really captures Cersei's mannerisms in that
Oh,
scene.
she's brilliant.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very good job by her. So then we have Cersei and Jaime standing by Tywin's corpse in the sept.
Yeah.
And Cersei accuses Jaime of being guilty of killing him by stupidity.
Well,
It's pretty funny. So yeah, she's pretty pissed about it. So they're kind of on the rocks. Then we check in with Tyrion, the other side of the sea, or I guess he's sailing through the sea at this time. He's emerging from his box with Varys, and he complains about his traveling conditions. And it's the beginning of what is a dramatic fall for this character on this season, because there are certainly season 2. There's no question he carries that season. He is the main character of season 2. He is obviously we know season 2 is my least favorite, but it would be a lot worse without him for sure. Season 4, you could even argue he's he's certainly a huge part of season 4 with like his trial and everything. I mean, he's a driving force of season 4 as well. And like his speech at the trial is legendary. I would argue his slaying of his father was legendary, although Reagan would have some pissy little thoughts about that. But man,
it's legendary. They just changed, and one of the changes they made. Well, okay, I'll just say that this is clearly after his speech and his killing of his father and his girlfriend and his escape. This is clearly the part in his character arc where we should be getting Dark Tyrion.
Dark
Right?
Tyrion.
This is where he
Instead
should
we
be
get
going down a
bitchy
bad
Tyrion.
path. Yeah, we get pathetic Tyrion.
Yeah.
And no one asked for that.
No. Yeah, it's I think that, and we'll get into it when we get into season 8. I think a lot of the criticisms about the ending are overblown and drawn out of proportion. But the fall of Tyrion's character is certainly worth complaining about. I think it is probably the biggest failing of, which you can't even put that on season 8 because here we are at season 5 talking about it. I'm not going to say that Well, I was gonna say I'm not gonna say that Tyrion is the worst part of this season, but I might actually have to take that back. I might actually every time that he is on screen in season 5, I'm like, oh Jesus, I'll skip through this.
Yeah,
As
I
far
wouldn't
as
go that
my
far, but
going back through my taking my notes,
and some people blame it on Peter Dinklage just being too likable. Like they just couldn't
he's
take
not
a
likable in
character in
this
a
season.
dark direction. But I mean, it really just if that's why they did it, it backfired.
Yeah. Yeah, horrible butchering of that character. So we have that to look forward to for the rest of the season and basically the show.
And obviously, this partly for book readers stems from an omission that's a 5-letter T word.
A treat.
We'll move on. A treat.
Uh,
A treat for Tyrion.
so then we had Daenerys' forces toppling the Harpy statue off of Marine. Wonder how expensive that was. And then one of the Unsullied is killed in a brothel by a son of the Harpy. So we're beginning the Sons of the Harpy storyline. Also
Yeah.
a low point of season 5.
It is, but I do like that scene. That one random Unsullied like really makes me feel for him and
Does
his
it?
little
Well, I'm sure that's what they were going for.
well, like you think he's gonna get a prostitute and the thing is kind of like, oh, what's he need one of those for?
Missandei literally asks in the next scene why he would have visited that brothel. And Grey Worm says, no idea.
But it's very sweet. He just wants to be held.
No, I suppose. So anyway, Daenerys is pissed, if you can believe it, and she commands that killed Unsullied be buried publicly, and then she also asks Grey Worm to bring her whoever is responsible for this.
He's very determined to do so.
Sure. Jon Snow's debut in season 5. He is training Ollie.
Ollie.
The Square. Boy, does their relationship take a turn in this season?
Ollie, remember, was the kid that's family was killed by wildlings and took refuge
Specifically by
village.
I think his dad is literally killed right in front of him
By Torment?
no, by redheaded girl.
Oh, by Egret.
Yeah, by bow. Bow shot.
Mm-hmm.
So that's happening, and then meanwhile, Gilly is concerned that Sir Alistair may send her and Little Sam away, which is a legitimate concern because this is before Jon Snow has been elected. So Alistair is sort of the de facto leader here after the death of Lord Commander Mormont. He's the one that everyone expects is going to be the next Lord Commander.
Sure, his seniority
To
an extent.
Melisandre goes and gets Jon Snow for Stannis because don't forget Stannis is stationed here now. And they have this very awkward and unnecessary conversation on the way up because he's like up on the wall. So they're like, have to have this awkward elevator ride where she asks if he is a virgin. And he says he's not. Not sure what she was getting at there. So then Stannis asks Jon to convince Mance Rayder to command the wildlings to join his army. And if he refuses, he'll be burned alive. He has like a day to do this.
Yeah.
And Snow is not thrilled with that situation.
I hate all the weird stuff between Melisandre and Jon Snow, but I can see it paying off in one way in the books.
Oh, okay. Well, it certainly doesn't pay off in the show.
So cut it out.
Littlefinger, Sansa, and Sir Royce are watching as Robin, I guess you could say, trains, but he's not doing a very good job. And then Littlefinger gets a letter. Brienne questions why Podrick is still with her. They clearly, I feel like they were running out of things to do with him while they were on the road, and so they just kind of rehashed the same argument for multiple episodes. That gets old.
Well, they actually didn't run it. There's plenty of things for them to do. They just decided to cut all of it.
Sure. We get Sansa asking Littlefinger where they're going because they're departing the Vale, and he doesn't really answer her yet. This is the beginning of arc that Reagan does not like.
I don't like it either. Oh, you don't like it either?
I don't know if I hate it as much as some of the other stuff in this season, I have to say.
If I walk out of this episode, you know why.
Okay. So Loras is so they're like I guess they're kind of having like a wake or like a funeral or whatever. So Loras just makes a complete ass of himself in front of Cersei. Like he's just a complete idiot at this point. She blows him off, and then she goes and sees the new and probably not really improved, but certainly new version of Lancel Lannister.
Oh yes,
and it's very exciting for me because this is one of my favorite story arcs. He apologizes for sinfully sleeping with her in season 2 or 1 or whatever it was. I think it was 2, and providing Robert with the wine on his boar hunt, and she laughs in his face, which is a very Cersei thing for her to do.
Yeah.
Then we have Marjorie walking in on Loras with that gay guy that works for Littlefinger. That ends up being important later, believe it or not.
Yeah, he's a spy. I don't remember his name.
Yeah, he's a terrible character. Tyrion mopes and drinks some more, if you can believe it.
What?
And Varys says they're going to see Daenerys and Meereen. I don't know how they hadn't broached that subject yet, but so it is revealed. And then if you can believe it, it's tough to improve from that scene. But then we go straight to Hizdahr Zolorak, reporting to Daenerys that the masters of Yunkai have agreed to cede power to a council of freedmen and former slaveholders. This is his debut. I think it was in the last season where he asked about burying his father. So he had been introduced.
Yeah.
But this is the beginning of his campaign to convince her to reopen the fighting pits. Boy, is he focused on that task. And then later on, we have a stupid sex scene with Dario and Daenerys, and he's like, "Yeah, you should open them." And then she visits her dragons, but is forced to run out whenever they blow fire at her because they're pissed for being chained.
Dragons are still pretty cool.
God, This is not a very good episode so far, but to turn everything around, we get one of the all-time great Game of Thrones moments.
Mm-hmm.
Mance refuses to kneel to Stannis, and he is to be burned alive. Everybody's watching. The Wildlings are watching. The Night's Watch are watching. Stannis is watching. Jon Snow, he just can't see this happen. So you see him kind of look away, and he kind of walks off. You think he's just gonna he's walking out in protest. He's not gonna sit here and watch this crap happen. But in fact, he's going to get a bow, and he kills him with one bow shot, so his people don't have to see him scream and suffer right in front of everybody.
And so he doesn't have to scream and suffer.
Right, sure. Yeah, because he also respects him. But I always thought of it as he didn't want his people to have to see him go through that.
Interesting.
But yeah, I mean, sure. He also didn't have to suffer himself. That's true. They definitely had a rapport.
Sure.
But anyway, part of the reason that I loved season 5 so much during my first watch through is definitely because of Jon Snow. I think there's no question he's the best character this season. And he is my favorite Game of Thrones character. That's a spoiler. And it begins in season 4 where he's just really just on fire with the Battle at the Wall and burying or not burying, but having his little wake for redheaded girl, whatever her dumb name is. And Ygritte.
The disrespect.
Well, her name doesn't stick with me for some reason. It's like Cyril Karn.
Nothing.
But then he's just basically carrying this season on his back, particularly for the first chunk of it. We see it here in this episode. This is, I think, one of my all-time favorite Game of Thrones moments. We'll see where it ends up ranking in the grand scheme of things at the end. But
you're forgetting that Marjorie's still here, but I hear you.
Marjorie,
my queen.
No, but anyway, yeah, great scene, and he is very badass. Okay, that's episode 1. Episode 2 is the House of Black and White, another one of your favorite arcs. Damn. I don't think Reagan likes this season very much.
The show. I
don't have as big a problem with it. I do think it gets a little long in the tooth, but I am interested in this development for that character. It's just this whole episode, she's trying to get in there. It's Jesus, they could have sped that one up.
Well, I'm gonna try to relax and have fun with this because it's not my favorite season. Yes. But I'm gonna try to focus on the positives.
It's a season, in my opinion, it's a season of great highs and lows. There are some really, really high highs in this season, like the Jon Snow thing I just talked about, and there's going to be others, not even all related to Jon Snow, although I will be honest, he carries a lot of them. But there are also lows, so it will. I mean, I don't want to tip my hand too much here, but what I think is the worst episode of Game of Thrones up to this point in the show is in this season. But also, I think maybe not the very best, but certainly a top 5er is also in this season up to this point.
Very interesting. Well, a lot of book readers will say, stop now.
Well, that's absurd. You don't get the best season or best episode. I don't know if it's the best season or not. We'll find out whenever I really analyze it, but certainly the best episode.
I think there's enough good stuff.
It's not just me either, because if you look up the highest rated episodes of Game of Thrones, season 6 does extremely well.
Yeah, and look at the highest rated episodes of Star Wars live action.
Andor dominates, which is correct.
Except the number one.
It's not number 1. Well, I'm not saying, I don't agree with the Game of Thrones episode that is number 1, but I think it's a very good episode.
Sure.
And it's a very good episode of The Mandalorian, by the way. as far as they go. But anyway, Arya arrives at the house of Black and White. She can't get in.
Just to be clear, Mandalorian is hot garbage.
Hang on a
compared
second.
to
Oh
Andor.
my gosh, you just completely buried this podcast. Well, yes, compared to Andor, it is definitely hot garbage, but
That's all I want to say.
not hot garbage in the grand scheme of shows.
I couldn't let those two shows be
It
mentioned.
is solid at worst.
I didn't like it. Moving on.
Well, okay, but she's only seen season 1, so that doesn't. Except for a lot of people like season 1 the best, but I don't.
That's bad.
Yeah, it's rough. Okay, Brienne and Podrick find Sansa and Littlefinger in an inn. This is kind of a big moment, but Sansa refuses to join her like the dumbass that she is. Boy, is she stupid.
frustrating.
Brienne
She's
kills.
not stupid. That's
Are you sure?
she's not supposed to be.
Well, maybe she's not supposed to be, but as we've seen from adaptations lately, a lot of showrunners completely miss the point of some characters, you could argue. Important ones at that. Anyway, Brienne kills a Knight of the Vale on the way out. She just does not give a shit about the sparing the lives of these men who have really done nothing wrong, and leads them on a chase, and she kills another one in defense of Podrick. That one's a little more understandable. Anyway, that's a disaster. So then Cersei receives a threatening... Oh no, here we go. We haven't even got to your least favorite arc yet. Cersei receives a threatening message from Dorne regarding Myrcella, and Jaime agrees to go and find her, picking up Bronn on the way. Can't have a trip to Dorne without lovely Bronn.
Jesus, they just
Oh man,
really wanted to keep Bronn in the show.
they certainly did. And I don't have a problem with that. Reagan is kind of she got sick of Bronn,
Yeah.
which he definitely, yeah, he's diminishing returns for sure, but
He outstays his welcome. He would be tiers higher if he was
he just
done.
died in season 3 or something.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's a big thing. Oh, and then we have a scene indoor with Prince Doran. He refuses Ilaria Sand's request to harm Myrcella or go to war over Oberyn's death, and it seems like we see that scene also like 5 times in this season.
Sorry, part of my thing with Bronn is he is the same fucking character start to finish.
Yeah, he is a very static
He
character.
is a one
Maybe the
pony.
most static character I've ever seen. Which, that can work just fine.
How much screen time he has, it doesn't work.
Emperor Palpatine is a static character, and he's excellent. So, I mean, it can work.
Bronn has more screen time than Emperor Palpatine.
That is probably true. Dario and Grey Worm find and injure a member of the Sons of the Harpy, and they take him to Daenerys. This character of Massador shows up. I don't even know where he comes from. I swear he just pops up in this episode. He asks Daenerys to have him killed, but Ser Barristan says that she should give him a trial instead. So she leans toward Ser Barristan over instead of this random kid who just showed up out of nowhere. And so then Barrister tells Daenerys about her father's growing lust for justice. I do really like this scene a lot because I think it gives a lot of insight into her character. And he says that her father is a quote here. He says, "Your father murdered sons in front of their fathers and in front of their fathers, sons in front of their fathers, and burned men alive and laughed as they screamed. His efforts to stamp out dissent led to rebellion that killed every Targaryen except 2. He gave his enemies the justice he thought they deserved, and each time it made him feel powerful and right until the very end." I love that.
In terms of sons in front of your father, I think Ned's brother was killed before his father.
Yeah, he definitely was.
And so that's just one example.
Mm-hmm. But I think that is just a really interesting, we don't have to get too deep into Daenerys' arc here, but I do think that offers a lot of very interesting insight. Obviously, she's not exactly the same character that her father was, but they have parallels. And I think one of them is that I think the idea that every time that he gave his enemies the justice he thought they deserved. So in his mind, he wasn't like this crazy killer. He was like, these people deserve what is happening to them. Mm-hmm. And every time that he did that, it made him feel even more powerful and right and just. And I love that. So anyway, Ser Barristan, great.
And I love it coming
stuff
from Ser Barristan.
Yeah, because he was there firsthand, so he would know.
And he's like the textbook noble knight, as opposed to Jaime, who turned on Varys.
Yeah, it's interesting. You never hear Jaime talk about him really at all. But Barristan seemed like, I mean, obviously Barristan was much higher up the chain than Jaime would have been at the time because he would have been obviously a lot younger. Mm-hmm. But Barristan, this is like him in his peak, so he must have been like their number one guy, you would think, being this feared and revered knight, amazing sword fighter. But it is very interesting that he seemed to know the Targaryens very well, and he was obviously very fond of Rhaegar.
Hmm.
So anyway, I really like that. I ultimately like Sir Barristan doesn't do a ton after he joins up with Daenerys, but I think these scenes are important
Mhm.
and well done. So anyway, this little speech convinces her not to have the prisoner executed without a fair trial. So good for her. Tyrion complains some more. That's literally all I wrote in that scene because I was like, I'm not going to sit here and watch this crap again. Then Cersei is presented with a head by someone who thinks it's Tyrion, but she says it's not Tyrion. But she doesn't punch him though. She says mistakes will be made, and then Qyburn keeps it for his experiments. God, I love him so much. He's like, I might keep if I might, my queen. It might be useful to me. She's like, very well. Cersei presides over a small council meeting, and so she names Lord Tyrell Master of Coin, which he thinks is just this great honor, and then she names Qyburn Master of Whisperers, but she doesn't have full sway over this council because Kevin Lannister refuses to recognize her authority and leaves.
Mhm.
So her hold is becoming tenuous here.
And he's her uncle.
Mhm.
He's Tywin's brother.
Right. Who really kind of comes out of nowhere in the show, but he is more of a character in the book, it seems.
Yeah.
Shireen teaches Gilly how to read. What a scene between two of your faves.
Oh, I love that. Give me that all episode.
And of course, Silly arrives and tells Shireen to stay away from her because she's a
Sure, of course she does.
Of course she does. Then we have Stannis offering to, this is a great offer. He offers to make Jon A. Stark and Lord of Winterfell. And Jon does not refuse him right away. He tells Sam about it, and Sam's like, well, great. They should definitely take him up on that. He's like, I'm going to refuse him because I've made my vow to the Night Shots.
But I think it's important that he's tempted.
Sure. Yeah, well, yeah, why wouldn't it be? It would be crazy not to be tempted. But, and he's like, not only is he refusing to do it, he's also refusing to do it and knowing that Alistair is going to be Lord Commander and he's going to be under his rule and it's just going to be miserable.
Mm-hmm.
But then that doesn't happen because we have the election of the Night's Watch. It's a good thing he broke that news to Sam before the election because Sam nominates him during that. And, it's supposed to be Alistair versus some old guy. I forget his name. He was like, I don't know, been there like longest.
Donald Noy?
I don't think so.
Is it? I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember. He's literally not a character in the show at all, except for in this one scene. But anyway, Alistair's definitely going to win. But Sam nominates Jon Snow, and he makes a very good speech about it, about how Alistair, he doesn't like downplay Alistair. He's just like, Alistair fought bravely during the battle at the wall, but then he was injured, and then Jon Snow had to fill in. And he's like, he also avenged our Lord Commander from the basically just giving this awesome resume of all the badass things. It's like the reverse of Daenerys, where they just keep spouting all her stupid crap, and you're just like, yeah, whatever, all these stupid titles. But then, like, here he's just like actually giving a list of all the deeds that Jon Snow does, and you're like, yeah, goddamn, he has been cooking. And
I cannot wait for you to read this scene.
Oh, really?
There's payoff or something. I don't know if you'll like it better. I do. I don't know that it would have translated to screen well.
Well, this is another one of my favorite scenes, for sure.
I just cannot wait for you to read this.
But yeah, he went north of the wall to avenge the Lord Commander. He was being groomed by the Lord Commander to lead. So yeah, he's just like laying out all this stuff. So it ends up being a tie, actually. And then Maester Aemon casts the deciding vote. That's a great touch.
I like how they count them up.
Yeah. That's awesome. So Jon Snow, Lord Commander. I remember the first time I watched this, I did not see that coming. Somehow.
I just watched a video, YouTube Shorts, that might be a totally bullshit story, but it's Kit Harington talking about being pulled over, and he was speeding, and the cop asks him, is like, okay, either you're gonna follow me to the station, because he was speeding that much, or you're gonna tell me if you live next season.
Oh.
And he was told, like, sworn to secrecy, like, don't tell your mom, don't tell your dad, don't tell anybody. He's like, I didn't. So, like, 3 people knew.
He told that cop?
Me and that cop.
That's hilarious.
And that cop was like, thank you, Lord Commander.
Ridiculous.
On your way.
We get okay, so back to Arya and Braavos and this boring crap. So Jack Nagar reveals himself to be this old black dude who refused to let Arya into the house earlier in the episode. And then he decides to let her in. So great. Thanks for wasting our time. Nothing has changed. He just decides to let her in now. Okay, so then we get this scene. So Massador, this character that has been all in this show for all of an episode, I think. Maybe he was in earlier, but I certainly don't remember if he was. He kills the son of the Harpy prisoner and then leaves his body out on display. So Daenerys is furious about this, and she has him publicly executed.
Because she wanted him to have a fair trial.
But why
and
didn't
that
you
guy
give
went behind her.
Massador a fair trial at least? It was dumb.
Well, because she knew exactly what happened.
Bad rulership on her part. Anyway, that immediately pisses off everybody in Marine, so she's not Misa anymore.
They go,
They're hissing at her. It's so weird. And they pelt her with rocks. And then that night, Drogon visits randomly and then flies off again. So I guess just letting us know that he's still alive.
well, no, it's the symbolism. It's she's playing with her fiery side.
She's not being enough of a dragon.
No, that was her stepping back into the dragon role. Her doing the trial
No,
stuff.
but then he
her
leaves
being
her.
peaceful. Well, yeah, she's not like fully there yet. She had a moment.
Oh, God. This is a brutal season for her. Okay, episode 3 is a reference to somebody that does not have a bad season. The High Sparrow.
Oh,
But it starts with Arya. She sees a man come to the well in the House of Black and White and drinks the water in the little fountain they got over there and dies. She learns that the fountain is poison or whatever the hell's going on in there. Marjorie is married to Tommen. A wedding. This is as far as weddings go, Game of Thrones, boy, did they go through this one fast. It's not doesn't get the pageantry that Joffrey's does.
I would watch the whole episode of Marjorie. And
But they
Tommen.
do consummate the message, but off screen.
Thank you, guys.
But Marjorie is almost immediately working him, and she's like trying to get him to send Cersei away so she can just be in total control. And he does talk to Cersei about going back to Casterly Rock, but she's like, absolutely not. And then Cersei actually visits Marjorie to confront her about this, but Marjorie's like with her handmaids and stuff, and they literally just rub salt in the wound, laugh in her face.
So good.
She tells Cersei's like, there's nothing she can really do about it in this moment, but this is actually a huge mistake for Marjorie.
I love their
This is one of her, maybe her biggest mistake
rivalry.
is her just, because where does Cersei go by the end of this episode? She begins the downfall of their entire house.
Sure.
But she is just so, I mean, not that Cersei didn't deserve it, you can understand why she did it, but she is just so cocky and condescending to Cersei in this scene. Just, man, I hope she enjoyed it because
That's where she does
it goes,
her whole mother
goes
sister
downhill.
thing.
Yeah. Goes downhill after that. Cersei asks Marjorie to let her know if she needs anything. The Bolton, and I'll take Cersei over Marjorie any day, so I'm pleased that Cersei topples her ass.
I love both,
No.
but I was absolute. Well, I'm sorry, we can't spoil anything
Sure.
from next season.
The Boltons continue their remodeling of Winterfell, including the display of some Northerners that Ramsay had flayed, so that's lovely. Roose tells him that they don't have enough men to hold the North if the other houses rebel, so it's, he's like, maybe tone it down a little bit there, bud. But he says it's okay because he has found the perfect girl to solidify their hold on the North, which does make sense from his perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So Littlefinger and Sansa arrive at Moat Cailin, and this is where he reveals that he is taking her to Winterfell to marry Ramsay.
Doesn't make sense from his
Well, I think that
perspective.
it actually does.
Let's hear it.
Wait, really? Okay, well, you want me to lay it out for you right now? So I think what he's thinking here is obviously he's trying to form alliances with not the Lannisters, like people that are going to be working against the Lannisters' interests because they're in control right now. And so that's why he's with the Tyrells. But his thinking is he knows that Stannis is on his way to fight Winterfell. And I think he probably gives Stannis a greater chance than not of success because Stannis is this proven battle commander that has won many battles. And he's going to go up against these kind of untested Boltons. They've been in the Northern armies, but they haven't like led anything themselves. Plus they're, he is kind of betting on the idea that they're not going to have the full support of the North, which is certainly true. And so I think he's calculating here that Stannis is going to win. But then even if he doesn't, I think his plan is to let them fight each other and then take to do basically, well, no spoilers, but bring the Vale in and clear him out.
Do you think he's banking on Stannis? Because
I think so.
he stands no chance in Stannis' court. Stannis would not put up with Littlefinger's bullshit for 2 seconds.
Well, that's true, but I think that he also feels that he can topple Stannis as well with the other alliances that he's made. I mean, the fact that he has the Vale under essentially his command at this point, and they are untouched by war at this point, they're in perfect condition. I think is a big. He thinks that he'll be able to leverage that in a lot of key ways, and then technically he has worked out this deal with Cersei. Well, actually, I don't think he has yet at this point. But then, like later, he works out this deal with Cersei later this season for her to name him Warden of the North if they can topple the Boltons.
So he gives the key to the North to marry a guy whose last wife he immediately starved to death.
Well, I guess yeah, he should know that, shouldn't he?
He should.
But is that in the show though? Because you got to keep in mind that this is a different continuity than the book. He said he does admit now he obviously it ends up being a mistake for him, no question about it. But I think that in his mind he's thinking all of these dominoes are going to fall into place, and he clearly underestimates the Boltons and Ramsay specifically. And he does say in a scene later on that he does not know much about Ramsay, which makes sense because he's like just about.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Why would he give her to someone that he doesn't know much about?
Well, because he knows
supposed to
his father, and he thinks it's just temporary. It's definitely him overplaying for sure. Like it ends up being a mistake, but I think that if everything had worked out well for him, Russell Hantz style, then he would have come out looking like a genius. But it didn't.
It's not about it being a gamble because he's a gambler. Like that's fine.
Right, but eventually you're going to lose if you gamble that much.
Yeah.
And he hasn't lost up to this point.
It's the person that he sees sometimes as the daughter he could have had, sometimes as his lost Catelyn, and always as the key to the North.
Mm-hmm.
And he risks her with someone with a flayed man on their banner that
that's what Brandon's points. He's like, that should be a bigger red flag than it is.
It's just the epitome of cruelty.
Well, another thing, I haven't really thought about it a ton, but is it possible that he's hoping that psychologically this damages Sansa to the point where when he comes in and saves her, that like makes him
he's already there.
More with it. Well, not really, because like he's kind of there.
He's
kind of there, but she's not all in.
Yeah, but I think he thinks she is.
I don't think he does.
And it's dumb. Well,
it's a mistake. I don't think it's dumb. I think it is bold and not. I don't think he obviously thought. He tries to. He says later on in the series, he tries to think about what's the worst thing that everybody could be thinking or doing.
So him coming in to swoop up and save Sansa doesn't work if he threw her in there.
Well, I know, but his argument could be that he didn't know that it was going to be that bad. And so as soon as he found out about it, he dropped everything and came to rescue her.
Ugh.
And then also, she is like the de facto, the reason the Boltons want her is because she is obviously a Stark and her name carries weight there. And so since she's already in place, kind of makes it more clean, I guess, whenever he comes in and then she's already there. So it's like, oh, it's not weird if I marry her now. She's already the Lady of Winterfell. Now he's still gonna have to deal with Cersei on the back end because she wants her dead. But I guess he's thinking that by then the Tyrells will have taken care of it.
Well, I think it makes him a stupider character. You think
I just don't
necessarily.
I don't.
But
regardless,
for Sansa's character, this is.
Well, yeah, you have some very harsh disagreements with where they take Sansa's character. I don't really have anything to compare it with other than the parts that I have seen. And to me, from what I've seen so far, just in the first couple of seasons, they've already ruined her character. So, like, where is there to go, really?
Well, because y'all remember, if you've heard our earlier episodes, how high she was in
my book
1.
In my chapter rankings. That's not a character. There's a difference between a point of view of ranking a point of view characters in terms of their chapters versus the characters themselves.
I thought you did rank the characters themselves.
Well, no, only once they're dead. No, I rank the point of views for each book.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's it. That's not the same thing as saying like overall. I think this is where this character ranks. I obviously do not think Sansa Stark is a better character than Ned, but I had her chapters above Ned in season 1 because or in book 1 because I was very that found them very interesting.
Well, you're never gonna get more net, so
Well,
she
I
already beat
understand.
him in his one chance.
Well, that's not exactly how it works.
Okay.
But also, I do think show Ned is better than book Ned. But and then also Ned just so that we talked about, he dies, but his character looms large over the remainder of the series. And I don't know where her character goes in the books. A great example of that is the character of Ellie from The Last of Us. I have her above Joel for the first game, and then by the second game, she is no longer above him because characters change or they're not dead. But anyway, there's no universe where I would put Sansa above Ned in terms of a character, but in terms of the chapters in the book, I did enjoy hers more overall.
Well, I'm very excited to read more of her, and I can't imagine a single person on the planet that's excited to watch more of this arc with her.
I can imagine if well, anyway. So they ride him okay. And she's protesting about this plan of his, but he convinces her it's the right move for vengeance. That's how he pitches it to her. Like you can get vengeance on these people.
Mm.
And then Brienne watches and later tells Podrick about when she fell in love with Renly and her determination to kill Stannis, which perhaps we'll get to pay off on later. John refuses Stannis' offer, which makes more sense now that he's Lord Commander. And he tells him that they can't afford to feed your army, but definitely either way. By the way, so get the fuck out of here. And Stannis says they'll leave in the fortnight. And that he's the fate of the Wildlings is up to you, Lord Commander. And he also says, hey, by the way, you should really send Alistair Thorne away. He doesn't like it very much. Excellent advice from Stannis.
Sure.
It's a cool meeting. It's not like moment worthy, but I do enjoy that little interaction between them.
One thing I would say the show does that evidently is to its benefit because your high stuff is all Jon Snow here.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that they take away a lot of his political mistakes.
Oh.
And
well, no, I don't think I disagree with that. He makes some critical mistakes that has some dire consequences in this season.
Okay, I just think that they simplified some of it and made him, I don't know, took away some of the nuance to just make him more straight up badass.
Yeah, they certainly did that. Man, it's awesome. Oh, and then we have a debut of another new excellent character. Over in Bravo's, Arya meets the waif.
Oh my god,
and administers the first of her quizzes. Jaqen says she needs to throw away all of her possessions, which she does, except for Needle, which she hides in a pile of rocks. And Arya is tasked with watching her first corpse with the waif, first of many.
Now,
lovely.
If you haven't watched Game of Thrones with me, you probably don't know that I despise the waif.
Reagan
and every
hates
second she's
the
on
waif.
screen.
However, surely if you watched it again for a 20th time, you would enjoy her more now that she's so attached. You're so attached to that actress.
I went through the whole first season of Andor the first time, not realizing that that actress was the one that plays the waif.
Well, I didn't realize it at first, but I did make that connection for you.
Because she's older in Andor, of course. I still
honestly, she's not my favorite character in Andor either, but she's a good character. And I like the waif.
It's tough competition.
I've always enjoyed the waif, quite frankly. Now, the first time I watched it, I guess she got pretty old, but I just think the payoff is so good in season 6 that it's worth it to me. And also, just seeing Brandon get such a kick out of her, I enjoyed it. So, and then Sansa and Littlefinger arrive in Winterfell where they meet the Boltons. What a great thing happens. An old woman shows Sansa to her room and says they remember the Starks and are true rulers, as the true rulers. So, seems like it's not all bad here so far.
Remembers.
Jon Snow names Alistair First Ranger, which is a great moment because it's like he's finally got power over this guy, and like he calls him. Well, before he says anything to Alistair, like he actually says somebody needs to like fix up their latrines or something, and Alistair just like you see in his face he thinks it's gonna be him, but he names it like some other guy. Just somebody that actually likes him, that he knew wouldn't take it hard. And then he calls Sir Alistair and he's names him for a stranger, which is a good thing he does because
He was
then
fucking with him with the latrine thing.
it could be he could have been.
Just like playing with his power a little bit.
Yeah, it's possible, but he was clearly overall he was trying to make a nice gesture by He actually elevated him in this moment. But then he also orders Jaina Slint to fix up Greyguard. So he doesn't he doesn't do what Stannis asked him to do with Alistair, but he does send Janos away, or at least he's going to. But Janos refuses, and so Jon just executes him like a badass. It's an amazing scene. Like every single, I was going back through these episodes, and I was like, all right, well, he kills. Manslayer was like, okay, well, he can't get any more badass than that. And then he's named Lord Commander. It's like, holy shit, well, that is awesome. But surely he can't get any more badass than that. And then he has this scene where he kills Janos Slint. It's like, oh my gosh, it's just so great. One of my favorite little detail is, he doesn't hesitate. Like he's like, okay, get him ready and everything. So everybody leaves, and he's just like, he's just left sitting in there at the table, and he finishes his drink. And then slams it down on the table and gets up. I love that little touch. It's whoever was behind that was such a great little touch. And then he has the Gus Fring shot where it's like the camera's behind him while he's walking up there. He gets the sword from this guy, it's really good.
I don't see it as badass. I'm such a softie. Anytime someone pleads with their last words, I'm like, God, just don't kill him.
Come on. Janos Slint had it coming. He betrayed Ned.
He takes it back. I know he betrayed Ned, but I'm not big on the whole cycle of violence thing.
Well, there is no cycle of violence. He kills Janos Slint and no one gives a shit. And Stannis respects him for it. He gives him a little nod. It's an amazing scene. The Sparrows have caught the High Septon in Littlefinger's brothel. And they march him naked to the Red Keep.
Yeah, it's brutal.
And he thinks that, Cersei's gonna be pissed at the Sparrows for this. But instead she goes and meets the High Sparrow himself and it's like, great work on that.
These highborns just think they can get away with anything.
Exactly, yeah. So it's like she hasn't actually given him any power yet, but she's kind of like tips her hand at the end, like, what if you did have a little more authority than, wander around in these back streets like you are right now. And then she also sends a message to Littlefinger. So Littlefinger meets with Ramsay, who says he'll never hurt Sansa. So that's encouraging. Then Roose arrives, and he gives Littlefinger a message from Cersei that he has already read. And he says he'd like to see Littlefinger's reply before he sends it. This is kind of where, I don't know, it's like good Littlefinger stuff here where he's obviously having to, he means to betray both of these people, but he has to make each side believe that he's really with them, but he's just tricking the other side. Mm-hmm. And the reality is he's with neither side, obviously. But he's, because they think they have a common enemy, he's able to just push toward that, So are
the Boltons not with the Lannisters?
Not anymore, because they had they still technically are, but they had their allegiance with Tywin. Their deal was with Tywin. Tywin's dead now. And then who's left to take that spot but Tommen, who really means nothing, and Cersei.
How dare you? My sweet little baby angel.
Roose now is left in the north with he's, as we say in Halo terms, he's in deep with no cover because he's pissed off literally everybody in this country. And Tywin is not there to back him up. And so
now the country's very weakened.
He makes this decision that's where he decides to bring Sansa in. Well, he knows that Cersei's not going to be happy about that. Mm. So essentially that's it for the relationship with the Lannisters. And so he's hoping that he can leverage this alliance with Littlefinger and the Vale, which obviously is a much more pressing neighbor, really, than King's Landing, which is further away.
If they'll get off their asses.
Right. Well, they won't yet. But anyway, so then, obviously the next episode, Littlefinger's going to go tell Cersei basically the opposite, where he's like, can you believe that they have Sansa down there? And she's like, rip them out, root and stem. And if you are behind, and he's like, well, just allow me. I have a whole army to my name that I can control.
Bullshit.
See? He's not a complete idiot.
I didn't say he was a complete idiot. I said that move
It ends up.
Um,
We know it ends up being a mistake, but I like this watch through in particular. I was able to see what he was going for, even though it obviously blows up in his face. And I think that makes sense in the sense that he does need to have some vulnerability because literally he has made no mistakes yet, and we are 5 seasons in. And so it makes sense that he would. I mean, unless he's going to end up on the Iron Throne, it makes sense for him to start making some mistakes around here, around this point in the story. Which maybe he makes different mistakes in the book, or I guess we don't know yet, do we?
well, yeah, I mean, there's certainly we're not as far.
Right. So then the finale of this episode is with Tyrion, if you can believe it, and he and Varys stop at whatever that city on the bridge is. I always forget what it's called. At one point, I remembered, but I foolishly didn't write it down here, and so I think it's Volantis.
Yeah, Valentis.
It's on the bridge. So they're in this brothel there, and who should also be there, but Jorah Mormont, who's making his debut for this season, and he kidnaps Tyrion to begin not my favorite arc of this season. Boy, is it repetitive. But anyway, that's their big finale for episode 3 for some reason. Episode 4 doesn't fill me with a whole lot more confidence about where we're going because it is called The Sons of the Harpy. And it begins with Jorah and Tyrion putting him on a boat. And where are they sailing? He doesn't say it. And then meanwhile, we have more sailing. Jaime and Bronn are sailing. Actually sailing toward Old Town first, which I don't even think we see them do anything in Old Town. I don't even know why they bothered with that detail.
Are they just trying to remind us it exists?
Maybe. Bronn says this is going to be a dangerous mission. And Jaime says if he ever sees Tyrion again, he'll split him in two. He's mad at him right now. Mace Tyrell basically says they're screwed with the Iron Bank, which they kind of knew already. So Cersei sends him to go to Braavos himself to bring them to an understanding. So that's great. It's kind of an amusing task for him.
Ace the ace.
Then Cersei visits the High Sparrow again, and she tells him that she could get Tommen to arm the sparrows and give them authority as a faith militant. And then she tells them about, well, you don't see her tell him directly, but this is clearly where she tells him about Loras Tyrell. And then we cut right from that to the faith militant. They are laying down the law fast against the sinners. They're taking out the drunks. They're taking out the whoremongers in Littlefinger's brothel. And then ultimately, they get Loras.
Now, this is one that you could see it's an issue without having any backstory on the faith militants.
But we don't have any backstory on them.
And then, if you know anything about Fire and Blood, that House the Dragon is based on, you're just screaming at her.
I don't.
You fucking idiot.
I don't know anything about the faith militant and House the Dragon.
Well, there's a reason they don't have swords anymore.
Really?
Up until Cersei rearms them.
So this is something that is going to come back into play in later seasons of House of the
Dragon. I think it's past the time of House of the Dragon's purview.
Got it. Okay, then Marjorie confronts Tommen about this arrest. She's not very happy about it. She says it's Cersei's doing, and she asks that he have him freed because he is the king. And so he makes the demand to Cersei that Loras really needs to be freed. And she says, well, she can't control the High Sparrow. And then Tommen goes to see the High Sparrow, but the faith militant won't let him in to see the High Sparrow. And so he goes back to Marjorie and tells her of his failure. And she says that she needs to go be with her family. So she's cutting him off.
It's such a power resides where people believe it resides moment.
Well, it's not with Tommen, that's for sure.
But only because he doesn't have the faith in himself to...
Right. Because, if this was a situation with Joffrey, he would have killed every single one of those faith militant.
Yeah.
In about 2 seconds.
Joffrey would have gotten in there.
Exactly.
Now they're obviously... Tommen is a better person and arguably king than Joffrey. But...
Boy, that's debatable.
Well, he's also much older in the show than he is in the books. Books, he's 8.
I think at this point, the best king has been Robert by a mile, and he sucked ass.
He's so bad.
That's part of the reason House of the Dragon was so interesting, because you have, at the very beginning, you have the end of a great king. And then, you have Viserys, who's really not considered a great king either. But compared to the kings that we have seen in Game of Thrones, it's oh, wow, look at this.
Yeah, Viserys' mistakes aren't really in terms of, what's going on in the realm currently. It's how he didn't set it up for future success.
Well,
it's you with the East Texas
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. I'm Viserys of these Texans.
He was the editor-in-chief for years of his school's journalism or journal. What's it called?
Newspaper? Yeah,
Yeah, that's
newspaper.
it.
Yeah, that's what they read back in the day.
And then he graduated, and he wasn't great at delegating, so he did a lot of it himself. And then he graduated, and a year later, it was gone.
Yeah. Whoops.
That's our reference.
Well, anyway. Selyse and Stannis discuss Jon Snow, and this is the beginning of Stannis foreshadowing that he is not Ned Stark. They really start doing the foreshadowing with Jon's heritage in this episode. Like, Selyse is like, look at that. They've elevated this bastard, the offspring of a tavern slut. And Stannis says, perhaps, but that wasn't Ned Stark's way. That's all he has to say about it, but,
How does a bastard orphan,
I'm not gonna
son
need to hear
of
about
a
that.
whore?
Selyse says she is ashamed of only giving Stannis Shireen. And then Melisandre shows up and sends her away. And Stannis says that he needs Melisandre. Yeah.
I don't.
Well, it's kind of important for at least the show. Jon Snow requests more men from the leaders of the Seven Kingdoms, including Roose Bolton, but he doesn't want to do it. This is Sam giving him the letters that are pre-written. He's signing them. Melisandre visits Jon and asks, oh god, this is horrible. Melisandre visits Jon and asks him to come with Stannis' forces when he rides south. He refuses, obviously, and then she tries to seduce him, but he sends her away.
Asks him to come. He says no.
Yeah, very weird scene. He's not, I guess, it's kind of the first time that we see her not getting her way, so in that way you should love it. Shireen visits Stannis. Oh, this is a great scene. Shireen visits Stannis and asks if he is ashamed of her.
Oh,
this is where he tells
baby.
a story of how determined he was to find a cure for her grayscale.
Yeah, that's a good redeeming.
It's a really good scene. Honestly, yeah, I love Stannis. And this scene, I think this is his best season. Like, he's awesome in all of the seasons that he's in, but this season he just has so much depth to him, I think. And things don't work out for him, and I just really think like his fall is just some of the best stuff.
I mean, for me, he's just nothing
scene,
without Shireen. He
this scene
absolutely
with
shines
Shireen
with
is, yeah, one of his better scenes for sure. Definitely a moment worthy. He'll be on the list.
Okay.
Sansa and Littlefinger discuss Lyanna Stark and Winterfell Crypt, so we get some more foreshadowing about Jon Snow. And he tells her, so I mean, they don't really, it's not like important for our purposes yet, but Sansa's just like, can you believe that Rhaegar kidnapped her and raped her? What an asshole. And like, Littlefinger doesn't really bother correcting her about that. She's like, yeah, whatever. So he tells her that he is answering Cersei's call for him to come to King's Landing and that Stannis will soon arrive to defeat the Boltons and name her Wardeness of the North, so no worries about that. And then he says if he doesn't, then she'll just have to bend Ramsay to her will, because she can do that. She's trained from the best in King's Landing. He says that he will return before too long. But she's not very good at her task. Jaime,
excuse me?
Well, she certainly does not bend.
It's not her fault.
Ramsay to her will. She fails
the
on
task
that.
was impossible.
She fails on that front. Yeah, well, that's true. He was a little out of her league. Jaime and Bronn begin rowing toward Dorne. Back to that, and they sleep on the beaches. Then some Dornish men find them on the beach, and they fight them off and steal their clothes and horses. The great conquerors that they are. Elsewhere, Ellaria meets with the Sand Snakes, having their debut. And she says they must avenge Oberyn themselves.
So the Sand Snakes are Oberyn's children from different mothers, or some of them from Ellaria.
Is that right?
I guess the show only has 3.
Yeah, so it's kind of like assumed. I think you just assume that these are all her children. I think
not.
Well, are you sure? Because in the book he has, or even in the show, he reveals that he has more children than that. But I think these 3 are from Ellaria.
I don't know. I think one of them has like a Septa as a mom, and
well, some of his children do, I'm sure, but he obviously
these
not.
3 are specifically Ellaria's.
I think so. I think Cersei implies that later.
I would have to check you on that, but
I'm sure. Well, I'm sure it's different in the book. Maybe there's more Sand Snakes in this.
Oh, they're absolutely there.
Right. So I think these Sand Snakes are the ones that are attached to Ellaria. Okay. Which, why else would they even go along with her stupid plan anyway, frankly? Anyway, so...
Well, because they're hungry for vengeance.
They plan to assassinate Myrcella before Jaime can stop them. So that's great. Then we have You can imagine like this, like something like this being in Andor. Just obviously Andor is top of mind because we've been watching that, and it's like you can imagine how well they could have done something like this, where it's like, oh gosh, it's a race against time. This group is coming to assassinate this person. This group is coming to save her. They do stuff like this all the time, and it's like so good. And then like they meet together, and it's just like chaos ensues, and it's like some of the greatest video or television you'll ever see. Then on the other end, you have this. Anyway, Tyrion pisses off.
You just have no idea. Because they just threw Dorne completely away. Like
Sure.
this.
Well, they should have thrown it away further because what they kept sucked.
No, they didn't keep it. They made this up.
Oh, they made this up.
This is all. This
Well,
was
that
made
makes
up.
sense. No wonder it's so fucking bad. Yeah, they are people that are making adaptations, I have learned. They need to get it through their thick skulls that they are not writers. They think they are. That's their title. They are not writers. They are adapters. They are taking the work of someone else and converting it to a different medium. Anytime, almost, maybe not in every case, and there are some stuff that they do invent in earlier seasons that are very good. I was thinking about the Catelyn scene in particular, where she talks about Jon Snow. But in general, they are adapters. And so when they try to come up with a whole, like writing one little scene is one thing, but trying to come up with a whole arc like this, complete disaster.
There's
and-
something Neil Druckmann says a lot in the podcast.
Oh,
which is
really?
that
Well,
if we're gonna change something, it better be better.
Well, that's ironic considering some of pretty much every change that they've made in season 2 has been for the worse.
Well, I think it shows in season 1.
It shows in season 1, certainly, except for with the character of Ellie, which is a pretty important one to fuck up. But anyway, Tyrion pisses off Jorah as they sell for Marine. Again, I was just like, I'm not sitting through this crap. You get the idea. They don't like each other. Sir Barristan talks about how great Rhaegar was. So more foreshadowing. This is like the Jon Snow foreshadowing episode. They were packing it all into this episode.
No, we said we weren't doing spoilers.
Well, I haven't
Season
spoiled
5.
anything. It's just they put 2 and 2 together, listeners, if you haven't watched it. But is interrupted by Hinsdar once again complaining about the fighting pits as the Sons of Harpies attack Daenerys' forces in the streets. And it ends with Sir Barristan's noble 6 moment in terms of Halo, where he sacrifices himself, but he takes a bunch of the bastards down with him. And he saves the Grey Worm in the process.
I mean, I think the point is that it's so much easier to just conquer and leave than it is to actually rule.
Certainly
and
what
make
she
the
should have done.
city
It would have been a lot more
sustainable.
entertaining. She could have just...
And we certainly feel that.
See, it could
how
have just...
draining it is to try to stay
Here's what
there.
they should have done. Here's what they should have done with Daenerys this season. Should have done exactly what they did with Bran this season, which is to take her out completely, and then you could just say, oh, it's just like really long. It takes a long time to sell Westeros. It really takes a long time, and then pick it up whenever she gets there, because nothing of interest happens while she's over there. Except for, I guess you could argue this scene with Barristan, which I do like. I know that it's like the actor was disappointed because he dies and he's not dead in the books yet. It's my understanding.
And it's also disappointing.
Well, it's disappointing.
Sorry,
It's disappointing in the sense that he dies to these just horrible opposing force, like literally like the opposite. It's kind of like in The Last of Us, where you have like we're going through the city in Pittsburgh and see in the first game, and you do not care about those people at all. They're all just meat for you to kill. And then in the show, they're like, oh well, let's give them a face and like make you care about these people more. It's like the original version of that, where you do not care about the Sons of the Harpies at all at any point. They do not have a leader that we ever see.
And the person he dies saving, like, I like Grey Worm, but like
Not as much as Sir Barristan.
it's not as much as Sir Barristan.
That's interesting. Well, that's fair. Yeah, certainly. I think the first time I watched the show, I definitely like Grey Worm more. And I think in terms of show purposes, I think they want you to like Grey Worm.
I think you're right. First time I also liked Grey Worm more.
But yeah, I kind of agree. Like Sir Barristan's pretty damn great, and it is tough to lose him. I do think that it's a well done scene. The thing that I like about the most is they do a little bit of the Sephiroth approach with him, which is one of my favorite techniques, where the whole season, particularly in season 1, but the whole series, they're talking about how legendary he is as a sword fighter, but you never see him fight anybody until the very end. And of course, he's way past his prime, but he still like takes down a bunch of those fuckers before they get him. And I think that is cool.
Yeah. But he had potential. He had so much more potential.
Well, I also think it is kind of important to get him out of the picture, unless they go a different direction in the books, and that might be kind of interesting as well. But because he has been known to stand by while tyrants are born, but I think that my read of the character in the show version is that he probably would have pulled her back from some of her worst impulses, actually, like he has done up to this point. And then she loses that influence and she gets Tyrion, who's completely worthless instead. So I think that's kind of like important for her character that he dies for the arc that they wanted her to go on. Anyway,
I like it better with him on one shoulder, Tyrion on the other shoulder.
yeah.
But
Well, I think it's just the problem with that is that he is just so obviously better than like why would she ever listen to anything Tyrion had to say in that scenario?
well, that goes back to they made Tyrion suck now.
Right. I guess they could not make that happen in the books. That would be great.
He could go down a dark path and not suck.
That would be ideal. Episode 5 is Kill the Boy. It starts with Missandei. She's mourning Grey Worm, who is unresponsive. And Daenerys is mourning Barristan, who is dead. So more unresponsive. Hizdar, of all people, shows up! While she is grieving Sir Barristan, Dario suggests that they clear out the city street by street. Daenerys commands him to round up the leader of all the families, including Hizdar, who's hopefully right there. She takes him down to the dragon pit and burns one of them alive. She says, "Who is innocent? Maybe all of you are. Maybe none of you are. Maybe I should let the dragons decide." So this is the beginning of Daenerys not really caring too much about who's innocent and who isn't, and getting some retribution here. Important context for her penchant for violence when angered, particularly when angered. And she was certainly angry there. So anyway, rip to that guy. Sam gets a message that says Daenerys refuses to leave Meereen until the freedom of the former slaves is secure. He reads this to Maester Aemon. And Maester Aemon is just distraught by this. He's like, a Targaryen alone in the world is a terrible thing. Just as Jon Snow shows up, which is interesting. Jon plans to ask him about whether he should save the wildlings. But before he even gets to the point, Maester Aemon says, "Half the men already hate you, Jon Snow, do it." And he tells him to kill the boy and let the man be born.
And he doesn't even know what he's telling him to do. He's just like, you know, it's the right thing. So.
Yeah, it's a great scene.
Mm-hmm.
So Jon Snow tells Tormund he is to go north and bring the remaining wildlings back, and he'll let them through the gate. And Tormund says, "Well, if I'm going to do that, then you're going to be coming with me, pal, or else they're not going to believe you." And he's like, "All right." So then he has to announce that plan to the Night's Watch. And as predicted, most of them hate it. And Ollie even confronts Jon about this plan in his office. He's like, "Surely you're just tricking them." He's like, "I'm not tricking them, Ollie." So Ollie doesn't like that at all.
No. Sweet Ollie.
So lots of good stuff there with Jon Snow. As usual, Brienne continues to watch Winterfell. Then she tells the Northerner to get Sansa a message that if she needs help, to burn a candle from the tallest tower. However, it is not the tallest tower. At no point is it the tallest tower in this show. So I don't understand why they call it that. It's just some old dilapidated tower.
Yeah, I can't speak to that. But if you paid attention
It's
to
the one that
noticed it, then
Bran.
that's
It's the one that Bran falls out of. If Bran fell out of the tallest tower, he would be dead.
interesting.
He'd fall out of this like kind of. I mean, it sticks up a little. Right. Miranda is upset with Ramsay over his betrothal to Sansa, but they have some sex anyway. I don't know. It's baffling. Anyway, they have sex anyway. Sansa's old attendant gives her Brienne's message. Miranda and Ramsay.
Oh, woo.
Yeah.
They try to make Ramsay too sexy. I don't like it.
You don't like it? I think it's kind of cool.
Grosses me out.
I like him a lot.
That also grosses me
I
out.
really hated him the first time, but man, I mean, like I said, part of it is just Brandon got a kick out of him, but I really was entertained by him this season
I mean,
or this watch through.
I guess that's been my turn with Joffrey. Like I despised him the first time, and now I love to hate him.
I might like Ramsay.
I just haven't gotten there with Ramsay.
Joffrey is
'Cause
entertaining.
Joffrey's cool, you know?
No, yeah, he thinks he is. Yeah, Ramsay is actually kind of cool.
And I don't like that.
Well, I think I don't even know if they really were trying to make him cool. I think he just kind of is because that actor
Guy is just so charismatic.
that actor is cool. Yeah. Like he's like they try to make him deranged. Every time they show his face, he's looking absolutely nuts. Which is part of what's I like about the performance. And part of it is just that actor just happens to have extremely electric blue eyes, and it just kind of makes him look crazier. Anyway, I just really like him a lot.
I do hate him. I hate Ramsay. I don't hate the character. I just
No.
like as a character. I just think he's a little glorified in a way that.
Oh, I didn't feel that way watching it the first time.
Okay,
I mean, he's hot, but that's just because they got him.
find him at it all.
You don't think
him hot?
Well, I just mean like he's just a very like.
Andrew's attracted to Ramsay Bolton. Everybody.
I just tradition like to me like he's like shredded and like he's got blue eyes. I don't know what else do you want.
You.
Well, so Sansa's old attendant gives her Brienne's message.
Marjorie.
Sansa looks up at the tower and is approached by Miranda, who shows her Theon. So this is her reveal that Theon is here. She has not known that up to this point. He tells Ramsay Sansa saw him. Theon tells Ramsay that.
And he's in reek mode, so he's all.
Right. So then Sansa has this dinner with the Boltons, and Ramsay has Theon come in and serve them. Kind of shoving it in everybody's faces. Ramsay tells him to apologize for murdering Bran and Rickon, and Roose Bolton's wife announces that she is pregnant with a boy, which that does amuse Sansa.
Well, and then he apologized, and then he's just like, "All right, well, glad we worked that out."
I was like, to have that worked out.
Let's kiss and make up.
Right, and then it's after that where the wife says that she's pregnant with a boy, and so then he's not super happy about that, and Sansa is amused.
Which is a classic example of power dynamics switching throughout a scene.
Sure. Yeah, that is a good example of that for sure. So then Roose and Ramsay discuss it in private, and Roose says that he disgraced himself at dinner. And he realizes that Ramsay's concerned about his position with a newborn son on the way. And then he has this story where I guess it's like his attempt to bond with his son, where he reveals that he raped his mother under the hanging corpse of her husband because she married without his consent. So anyway, after that little bonding moment, he asks Ramsay to help him defeat Stannis. So that's great.
And that's really, you don't hear a lot about Ramsay's backstory in the show. So that's really kind of most of what you get.
Yeah.
Because you cut out Reek. I mean, you have Theon Reek,
right.
But you don't have Reek.
So that is a harsh loss. That's a cool reveal in the book for sure.
And you get some of his backstory through there. So I guess in the show, do you know that he was raised with his mom, and then at a certain age, his mom was like, "Hey, look, he's got your eyes. You can't deny it."
Well, now you know that. This is what Roose just revealed all that information to us.
Oh, he got that far. Okay.
Yeah, he told us about that. And so basically, I guess that's the blind part is he took him in. So that's nice of him, I guess. Anyway,
I guess is it trying to show hey, blood bonds are really important, so don't kill your brother.
Well, no, I don't think so. I think he's just saying we're in this together. Help me kill Stannis, these forces that are actually our enemies.
Well, clearly the goal of this conversation has got to be to convince them, hey, your station's good.
Well, I think kind of what he's saying,
I
think sort of what he's saying here is kill Stannis for me, and you'll keep your position. Anyway, so then we have Stannis. He visits Sam in the library, and he notes his father was the only man to ever defeat Robert. He's like, what's that guy's name? Sam's father?
Randall Tarley.
Exactly. You're Randall Tarley, son. Anyway, they speak of Sam's defeat of a White Walker, which she's also interested by.
Sam the Slayer.
So he tells Sam to keep reading. Then he tells Davos it's time. Davos recommends waiting for the wildlings, but Stannis says they have to beat the snows. He also says Selyse and Shireen are to accompany them. Davos doesn't think it's a good idea. Davos speaks to Shireen the next morning as they set out. He asks her to protect him in battle.
Hey, sweet baby.
And then Jon sees Stannis off, who reveals he has agreed to let Jon and Tormund use his ships to bring the wildlings from Hardhome back to Castle Black. So that was generous of him. I guess he was thinking he doesn't have any use of them while he takes down Winterfell. I got no need for ships.
It's Hardhome this season?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was nice of him. Grey Worm awakes and laments his failure to save Ser Barristan. He's very embarrassed by that. He tells Missandei that he's also ashamed because he felt fear for the first time during that battle, but it was that he wouldn't see her again.
Sweet baby.
And so she kisses him. He's rewarded for his sweetness.
I definitely liked Grey Worm first. And I think that my first watch through, I mixed up Ser Barristan and Kevin Lannister.
Yeah, you did. Well, it was one time where we were watching it together where you swore that War Stories scene from season 1 was Kevin Lannister. I was like, that is Barristan Selmy. That is not Kevin Lannister. And I don't think you ever accepted that I was right and you were wrong.
No, I did eventually, but
Not in that
the
moment.
actors, I mean, obviously, they're less distinct looking actors than
Sure, yeah. They're probably around the
Grey
same
Worm
age.
is. But yeah, I mean, he really was a favorite my first watch through, which was interesting. My first watch through, like Daenerys and Grey Worm really stood out. Early Arya,
Oh man. Very interesting.
always liked Marjorie, always liked Brienne.
Noticing a pattern.
People without balls.
Yeah. Who was your favorite man?
Grey Worm. We just talked about.
All right, fair enough. Daenerys asks Missandei for advice, and she basically says she trusts Daenerys to know best. So
He wasn't my favorite man. I'll have to think about that.
So Daenerys tells his daughter that she will open the fighting pits and that she will marry him as a sign of peace with the Masters.
Have you ever looked back to see if you could find that list you did like halfway through the show where you ranked all the
I
characters?
don't know if I have or not. I could look for it.
That would be fascinating. Because you have there's some record of that, whether you deleted it or
at one
not.
point there was.
Whereas I sped through it all so fast, and
Right.
I mean, I don't think I journaled about it. That would be my only hope of knowing what I really thought then.
Yeah. And if you can believe it, the finale of this episode is once again Jorah and Tyrion, really giving them a lot of push for this, really ending multiple episodes with them. But they're sailing through Valyria and they're attacked by the Stonemen. And ridiculously, I think it is absolutely absurd. One of the most absurd things in the entire show is that Tyrion gets through that unharmed. He's literally dragged underwater by one of them at one point, but no grayscale for him. But Jorah contracts grayscale.
I plead the fifth.
All right. Episode 6 is Unbowed, Unbent, and Unbroken.
The words of
Sansa Stark.
House.
No, I know it's a Dornish. Arya is
Oh, the Dornish. The Dornish are all just one house, folks.
Arya
Andrew
is
is a Dornish racist over
Are you done?
here. It's Martell.
Arya is getting sick of her corpse watching at the House of Black and White.
Sure.
But she continues to fail the test about being no one, so more corpse washing for her. Tyrion tells Jorah why he is in Essos and that he met his father.
You know, it's interesting because I like a cult plotline. And there's an assassin character in Stormlight Archives that's one of my favorites,
That's great.
who also has a cult plotline. And yet the House of Black and White just doesn't do it for me in either medium.
He also delivers the bad news that he was killed by his own men, so Jorah's upset about that.
Who was? Sorry.
Tyrion and Jorah.
Tyrion was killed by his own men.
No.
Tragic.
Jorah's father. If you would have heard the first sentence of that, you would have known. That would have made sense, but you were too busy prattling on.
Thinking about the House of Black and White. You should really read Stormlight Archives.
Arya gives some of the death water to a sick girl. That's what I call it in my notes. To a sick girl whose father brings her to the house, and Jaqen lets her, I guess as a reward for this, lets her see the face mausoleum. So it's a big reveal of the face mausoleum. By the way, the soundtrack for season 6, the album art is the face wall, but it's like all main characters. It's like who's actually, it's like kind of ominous because, they could all die.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Tyrion and Jorah are, actually, I think that's season 6, not season 5. I know that because my favorite Game of Thrones song is in season 6, so I say a lot. Tyrion and Jorah are captured by slavers. Oh, good. Just what we needed for this storyline. They want to kill Tyrion on the spot, thinking he's worthless, which are not far off, but he convinces them to keep him alive. Jorah convinces the leader to sell them to someone who will let them fight in Marine because they're opening the fighting pits.
And this is all, again, another balls joke. Because it's dwarf balls are lucky and they gotta be fresh if they're worth a lot of money.
So bad. Just horrible. Littlefinger arrives in King's Landing and he sees Lance on the Sparrows. So he's like, well, things have changed a bit since the last time he was here. He meets with Cersei. He asks him if he can bring the Vale into support of the Lannisters, and he convinces her that he will. He also tells her that Sansa is at Winterfell and to marry Ramsay Bolton. This infuriates Cersei, and she ensures the Lannisters will not back the Boltons, and also secures leave for Littlefinger to take Winterfell with the Knights of the Vale and be named the new Warden of the North. So,
Warden of the North.
I mean, it's paying off for him so far. Like, he delivered Sansa to them. Now he's going to Cersei and is like, allow me to get her for you. I have found out where she is. And he's like, because, he even kind of couched it. And he's like, I failed to find Arya for you. And I have always been broken up about that. But now I can deliver to you the other Stark girl.
I thought Harrenhal was a reach.
And she's like, excellent. And, yeah, I mean, Aaron was kind of a reach for
It absolutely
during the
was.
Tywin days, but now that he's dead, he can manipulate Cersei a lot easier.
Well, and Harrenhal came with the Warden of the
Yeah, I don't even
East
remember
or
how he got
West
it.
or one of those titles, didn't it?
Yeah, sure.
Well, he got it right before it was like, okay, well, it's just a title thing. It doesn't come with any like people or anything. But he got it right before he was gonna go marry Liza so that he would be high enough station to marry
Oh,
Liza. So he acted like it was like, well, it's not gonna do much for me, but then it really did.
mhm. Yeah, so, man. So far, his plan is paying off. It's just,
Very successful for a Lord of Harrenhal.
certainly. Trystane tells Marcella that he will ask for permission to marry her, and she's into it.
They're adorable
Doran looks
together.
over them and he tells that black dude, who's just apparently a character in the books, but they never even name him in the show, that they must protect them.
Arrow Hota.
And then Bronn and Jaime arrive in Sunspear, and they find Marcella. And then Jaime tries to get her to leave with them, but the Sand Snakes arrive, and they have what is, without question, the worst fight scene in the history of Game of Thrones, and one of the worst I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's really bad. But
Um,
I would love to watch Marcella and um not Quentin, what's his name? Tristan.
Mhm.
Tristan's Disney princess movie.
would you?
I think it would be adorable.
Sounds boring as fuck. Yeah, me.
She has some of the best fashion in the whole show.
Oh.
She's precious. Her and Tommen need to be protected at all costs. Let's see how that goes.
There we go. Well,
I think that they like it's their little Romeo and Juliet thing. Like they really fell in love, and it's cute.
can't believe you're trying to defend anything of this Dornish plot.
Oh no, I'm not. I'm just saying the core of it, I like them, and then they come and fuck it all up.
Well, this fight scene, it didn't stick out to me in previous watchthroughs, but watching it this time, I was shocked by how bad this fight scene is. And you can tell because like it's in stark contrast to a lot of the other Game of Thrones stuff where like
Even this season.
sure, where you have Jon Snow and they do like these awesome like long shots with Jon Snow where it's like they'll go a minute and a half where like there's no cut at all. And it's just all him like doing all this badass stuff. There are like 5,000 cuts in this battle because they are just doing everything they can to cover up the fact that whoever these women are that they've gotten to do these roles cannot do anything. And so they like have to like use all of this sorcery to make this fight look as good as it does, which is still really bad. And then
Let's not put all the blame on them. There could have been a lot of things.
well, we've seen Jaime in a fight scene, and we know that he can do it. We've seen Bronn training with Jaime, and there's not 1,000 cuts everywhere.
Maybe it was Arrow Hota.
It's no, because he hasn't shown up yet.
Well, when he does, it's enough to put him fairly high on Brandon's list.
Well, Brandon's list is shit. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say that.
In an episode for Brando's list of Game of Thrones
No,
characters.
we're not. Anyway, yeah, black guy comes up and he whatever. Some of his forces show up and stop the fighting. They take Jaime to Duran and imprison everyone else, setting us up for even more great scenes with these characters.
Talk about butchered characters.
Olenna returns to King's Landing after finding out about Loras' imprisonment at the hands of the Sparrows. She knows Cersei's behind it. So she meets with Cersei, but she gets nowhere with her. Cersei's pretending to be Tywin, where she's writing her little note like he used to do. She's really writing nothing. She's just doing it to look cool.
Kind of adorable.
I do like that actually. Then the High Sparrow presides over a trial of Loras. It's not like his official trial, but it's somewhat of a trial because they bring people in and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes testimony from Littlefinger's brothel keeper, who tells him that they slept together. I don't know why the brothel keeper is not arrested also. Kind of odd, isn't it?
Corruption.
But so they decide to arrest him again. And then they also get to arrest Marjorie now because she had been on the stand saying that she didn't know anything about this when in fact she walked in on them having sex earlier. So she's arrested too. And Tommen is sitting there and does absolutely nothing to stop this from happening. Not great. So then we
He
have
wants to. He just believes he's helpless.
right. So then for the grand finale of this great episode of television, Miranda comes to get Sansa to give her a bath before her big wedding. And Sansa is where Sansa realizes she's in love with Miranda. And so she says some things to provoke her and piss her off.
Wait, I'm sorry. It made it sound like Sansa realizes she's in love with Miranda.
No, Miranda is in love with Randy.
Makes more sense.
So Theon comes to take her to the wedding, and they have their wedding, and then Ramsay forces Theon to watch as he breaks her hands.
Yikes!
Well, whatever. How you want me to put it?
I don't. I want it to have never happened.
So that's the grand finale of that episode of Game of Thrones. Boy, that is something. Well, there you have it. Episode 7, The Gift. Jon Snow publicly unchains Tormund, which he had done in private before. And then he leaves for Hardhome with him and some of the other rangers, including Ed. Silasar is displeased. Maester Aemon tells Gilly to get little Sam south before it's too late. Sansa begs Theon for help. And after some doing, he does agree to send her a signal. Unfortunately, when he gets up there, Ramsay is waiting. So he cuts him off.
I thought he lied. I thought he turned on her.
Well, no, he was going to actually help her, but then he does turn on her because Ramsay's there waiting for him.
I didn't realize that he was actually going to help her. I thought it was
No, he was
a
definitely
twist
no
of,
question that he was going to help her. And then, but now to her, it's a betrayal.
Interesting.
But yeah, he absolutely was going to help her.
That it was like he took it straight to Ramsay.
No, he was going.
Well, how did Ramsay know?
Well, because he's Ramsay, he knows all.
Huh.
Yeah. Maester Aemon sees Aegon on his deathbed. You know, in his like dreams. Whoever Aegon, I mean, like there's like 1,000 Aegons, but whoever the Aegon was that he knew.
You'll know him soon enough. Soon as Duncan Egg comes out.
So sick of hearing about that. But he dies in the night, and so Sam speaks at his wake the next day. And it's kind of an interesting scene because Alistair is clearly sad at the death of Maester Aemon. But at the same time, he uses it as a opportunity to kind of take a dig at Sam. He says he's losing all his friends.
This is where you get Egg, I dreamed I was old.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful line.
Ramsay meets with Sansa. She tries to anger him by pointing out that his baby brother will be the true heir to Winterfell. But he counters that by saying that bastards can actually rise quite high and uses Jon Snow's success of the Wall as an example, which is all news to her. She did not know that he was the Lord Commander. Then he shows her the flayed corpse of the old woman who said she would help her if she needed it and reveals Theon betrayed her. So I guess that's how he knew. He got that old woman and flayed her ass.
I thought that was because of Theon's betrayal.
But I don't think so because Theon is going to that tower. And then Ramsay's in there waiting for him.
I didn't realize that room even was the tower. I thought he was just going to Ramsay's room to immediately report it to him.
No, he was going up to the tower, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Stannis and his forces are playing George Washington in his Minute Valley Forge with some of his men running away. They're in this snow having a terrible time. Davos recommends that they head back to Castle Black, but Stannis refuses. Melisandre says they need to use Shireen's blood to ensure victory. And he sends her away. He's like, I'm not going to do that. You out of your mind? This is the first time where Stannis is like really coming down hard against one of her plans.
Mm-hmm. It's cruel and insane.
Yeah, sure. So that's the correct reaction. So then we have some men come and try to give Gilly a little bit of rape. So lots of rape this season. But Sam is there to stop them. So they kick the shit out of him. But then Ghost shows up and saves him as usual. His savior, as always, Ghost.
Oh, he doesn't love Ghost.
Yeah. And then so as a reward for his valor.
Ghost gets a little treat, a little scritch.
No, it's Sam that gets a little treat from Gilly. He says, oh my.
Which goes against what what's her face said to Tyrion in like what season 1? Like you should have known it was a trick because no one has sex right after they're almost raped.
That is true. I guess they didn't get that close because he was there to stop it.
I don't know if people have all sorts of different reactions to trauma.
Well, it's not like it would have been her first time, so maybe she's used to it.
Yeesh.
Well, you know what I mean? Like maybe wasn't as traumatizing to her as it might have been.
Well, I mean, if we're going there, she was also groomed. Like that was her normal. Was
Sure.
like her mom and her grandma. They all
Mhm.
were used to that with her. It's a fucked up show.
Yes, it is. Jorah and Tyrion's captor sells them to another guy who will have Jorah, because this is the one who's actually going to have the fight pit. So I guess the other guy was just a middleman. Tyrion desperately beats another slave to try to convince the buyer that he is part of the team, and he ultimately agrees to buy him because he's funny.
He used to be.
We have a sex scene, if you can believe it. This time with Dario and Daenerys yet again. Doesn't really add anything. They don't agree philosophically, but they're into each other anyway. We get the idea.
He just doesn't do it for me.
No.
He's just not interesting enough, I guess.
Well,
Maybe he had blue hair.
part of the problem is that they are he and she and just this whole plot line in Marine. It is a clear example of spinning your wheels. They clearly did not have anything for these characters to be doing, and so they just. But Daenerys is one of the main characters and very popular because she's a girl boss, and so they have to like throw her in there.
That term.
They have
Stop that.
They have to throw her in, and like, what can they do? But have her have these very repetitive scenes with.
Well, I will
Dario
say
and
a lot
Aris.
of people say that Marine drags in the books too.
Hmm.
Like she should.
Oh, great! I got that to look forward to.
So it's not.
Olenna meets with the High Sparrow. That's more entertaining.
You think?
She calls him a fraud, and she offers him gold, but unfortunately for her, he is a true believer and is not interested in her gold. He says the Tyrells are the few and the Sparrows are the many who no longer fear the few. Which is bad news for the Tyrells. He's got a point there.
Yeah.
Outside, Olenna receives a letter from Littlefinger. That's exciting. Tommen is...
Gosh, she's so good.
Tommen
Wait,
is...
let's just take a second and you give her the respect she deserves.
She's a great character.
If I had said, all right, let's wait a second and give the High Sparrow the respect he deserves.
I would say he's also a great character.
Okay.
Some might argue better. I don't know. It would be close. We'll see where they end up ranking on this list for me.
He was the most improved on this watch through for me, I think. And I think I was feeding off of your
I love him.
enthusiasm for him. But I definitely saw a lot more in him this time.
That's good. I'm glad to hear it. Tommen is starving himself, and he's angry at the situation with Marjorie. Cersei tells him that she'll do everything she can to win Marjorie and Loras' freedom, so that's very nice of her.
Good mom.
Jaime meets with Marcella. He tells her that threats have been made about her safety, but she says that Dornans are home now and that she loves Trystane. And then in the cells, we get a god-awful scene where Bronn almost dies from the poison from the sand snakes had some poison in their spears on them.
Next.
And he almost dies from the poison, but that sand snake that is supposed to be the hot one saves him.
There's no world in which okay, no.
He is supposed to be.
I can't.
You might disagree, but that is what is supposed to happen.
Next.
That is what the writers intended. So she saves him after forcing him to say that she's the most beautiful woman in the world or some stupid shit like that. What a horrible scene. Littlefinger it's still not the one that you think has the worst line.
It's not, but it's painful.
It's equally bad almost. Littlefinger visits his destroyed brothel, which is kind of an interesting little moment. Like he doesn't break or anything, but you could see like that's got to be a little sad for him.
He built a lot.
Right. But he's actually there to meet with Olenna, and he tells her about Cersei's incest with Lancel Lannister. Now, again, it's like one of those situations where he doesn't come out and say it right there, but like you can surmise. That's what they discuss.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting. So he's like...
But then they cut away so you get to wonder.
Right. It's interesting. It's like... Because I guess you got to wonder at this point with Littlefinger. I just think he's so interesting. Even whenever he's making mistakes. Where he comes into the city... Well, he has a choice because Cersei has asked for him in the letter, so he has a choice to answer because he's got to keep up his relationship with her. So then she like has given him basically everything he wants. Like he's elevated to the point where he's gonna be named Warden of the North, but he knows that he's gonna have to do something about her eventually. And so because he gets to the city and he sees, my read is he just gets to the city and sees this opportunity with the sparrows running things, which obviously was different than how it was before. And so he knows that they're going to have some problems with some of the shit that she's done in the past. And so he's just like, Olenna just happens to be there as well. And he's like, well, I guess now or never, might as well just No time with the present to go ahead and start her little downfall.
Well, and Cersei absolutely should have been able to foresee that her downfall.
Yeah, it was.
lied with these
Well, that's
guys. Like,
another
it was
example. Like
very-
I love Cersei so much, and this story arc with the sparrows is my favorite one that she has, and part of it is because I think it's really interesting that she makes such a huge, titanic mistake. I mean, you understand why she did it because she saw an opportunity to stick it to the Tyrells, but obviously it backfires in a major way.
But she's also so conceited that like she's
I think she legitimately doesn't even see the threat.
Mhm.
And also she's probably thinking, well, I'm the one that elevated them. What are they going to bite the hand that feeds them? And the answer is yes.
because of the philosophy of the people that
Right,
you picked,
right.
which is also what
They don't
enables them
think
to
that's
take on
another
the
thing, and I think
Tyrells.
that's a part of why that scene with Olenna is important with her and the High Sparrow, because they just don't think like everybody that they're used to dealing with thinks,
Mhm.
and so they don't know how to manipulate them because they just can't wrap that thought process around their brains.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and it's Cersei makes some fun mistakes at this point.
Right, and then how she obviously comes back from her mistakes is my favorite thing, but like just the setup for that begins here, and I just love it. So
Yeah,
much.
and for the record, I'm not against Littlefinger making mistakes. And really, it's not even how stupid it makes Littlefinger look.
Which I would argue it doesn't.
It's about Sansa's arc,
Right.
and also
Well, to me,
what they do with
see,
it later.
that's where we have a big disagreement because to me, I don't mourn Sansa's arc at all because at this point, she's been ruined from episode 1. So what is there to mourn?
I hear you, but
And it's a shame because when I think of Sansa, I definitely think of that actress that plays her, and I think she's a good actress. And it's not. I don't put it on her at all. It's not like.
oh, I do think she's talented. Yeah,
It's not like honestly how I feel about The Last of Us, where I definitely put a lot of the blame on the showrunners. I think I kind of put equal blame on the showrunners and the actress in that case. But
well, and
realistically,
I think that they think that the actress that Bella Ramsey is brilliant.
oh,
actually.
they clearly do.
So it's not. In that case, she's doing exactly what she's directed to do.
Right. So maybe I should put more of the blame on them than her. But I guess it's hard to do just because she's the one that's actually acting it out, you know?
Hmm.
But anyway.
But so is Sansa.
Yeah, that's true. I guess to me,
Sophie Turner.
yeah, I guess to me, because I saw the show first, like maybe if I read the books first, maybe I would be more pissed I'd have more bad feelings about that actress just because of that.
Mm.
But I didn't. I saw the show first, so now I picture her as Sansa.
Yeah.
And also she matches the description in the book. That probably helps.
Sure.
Anyway, it's interesting psychology there. Jorah fights in front of Daenerys in a qualifier for the Marine fighting pit. Boy, does this go on a long time. This was an easy one for me to skip because I knew what happened. And then Tyrion emerges and meets her.
Now we did watch through the whole thing.
Oh yeah. I was just talking
Brandon.
about whenever I was going through for my notes.
Yes.
And then the big finale for this episode is Cersei visits Marjorie and she's rubbing her victory in her face. And this is Cersei at just maximum smugness.
Oh my gosh, it's the most smug face you'll ever see.
She's walking out of there strutting like Vince McMahon coming out.
That smile on her face.
And then within like 2 minutes, she is arrested by the sparrows. And she falls hard.
Yeah.
It's great.
That's really good stuff. Their rivalry is just so good.
Yeah, it is. But the High Sparrow, man. Oh, so good. And the way that he just like slowly rolls it out to her, damn. He's got some style too.
Mm.
Anyway, and you know that he just loves it.
Yeah. Yes, he does. And he loves that there's like nothing they can hold over him.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he's that religious, but I do think that he's very devout in this philosophy.
See, I
and
think
this like fuck you to the few.
Yeah, well, he's definitely that. I think he is religious, but well, okay, I think it's kind of both. I think he definitely is a true believer in the cause, but I also think that he has a real hatred for the rulers.
I don't think
the
either
ruling
of
class.
those are Yeah, like I think that's all it, and the God stuff is all
I don't think that's true.
a tool for
I
that.
think that he actually is a true believer in the God stuff too.
Okay.
I think he just sees an opportunity to use it as a cudgel against them, which he really hates them. So that great.
God, can you imagine a High Sparrow POV chapter?
Oh my gosh, I would love that.
That'd be awesome.
So episode 8 is called Hard Home. You know what that means?
Means I need to get some water.
Okay.
That's for you.
Hard Home. But it starts with Daenerys. She's coming to know Tyrion, and he advises her to send Jorah away without killing him. So she does. This takes way too long, like many of the Tyrion, Jorah, Daenerys scenes in this season.
I wish she'd killed him.
Well, that's harsh. I
Nah.
think that would have been worse.
I've always been harsh on Jorah.
But she killed Tyrion. Septa Unella visits Cersei and builds their little rivalry. It's kind of the debut of Septa Unella in a way. She might have been in the background in some shots, but this is the beginning of like where we understand who she is.
Yeah.
Arya begins to play the role of oyster merchant as part of her first assassination assignment.
Oysters, clams, and cockles.
She scopes out her target and makes her plan with poison supplied by Jaqen. The wife says she isn't ready. She might have a point. Qyburn visits Cersei in her cell. He tells her that Kevin Lannister is now Hand of the King and that Tommen is not eating or leaving his room. Cersei knows that she needs to get out of there, but she's still defiant. She refuses to admit blame or whatever. Or guilt. So Sansa is pissed at Theon for ratting on her.
Sure.
He says that he deserves what's happened to him, which is interesting.
Well, and at that point, she thinks he killed Brandon Rickon.
Right.
So.
And well, this is the scene where he says that he reveals that he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So she's still pissed at him, but then that does kind of change things for her a little bit.
Yeah, I think that flips him from irredeemable
Right.
to.
Well, she didn't think he was irredeemable last episode when she was begging him for help.
Well, she didn't think he was better than helping her. Or like, too far gone to help her, but that didn't mean that she would ever forgive him.
Well, this is something that I actually think is really well done. I'm going to say some positive things about Sansa in the second half of Game of Thrones. So watch out. But I think that her relationship with Theon is very good. There's clearly he's clearly kind of sweet on her, and it's because of his feelings for her that it's what ultimately kind of snaps him out of his whole Reek thing. He does it to save her.
And they never outright say that.
Right. That's part of what I like about it.
They have some moments, but it's never like.
That's part of what I like about it, is that they don't beat you over the head with it. Like if this, this was like in The Last of Us, for instance, if we had that idiot writing it, be beating us over the head with it, have all this stupid symbolism. There'd be like a love banner flying in the background or some crap. But I really like how understated it is, and it's part of what I really like about Theon as a character too. But
well, and people don't complain about Theon the second half of the show.
I wouldn't complain about him in any.
One of the ones I
think he's great the whole way through. I think that actor is unbelievable.
But he's one of the ones that they say and I would say sticks the landing.
Oh,
and I think that
boy, does he ever!
Sansa is part of that.
Yeah. So definitely.
It's not like every second Sansa's on screen I dislike. Just a lot of the things they did with her. But I agree. Her and Theon. And I think they took it just the right amount. Mm-hmm. I think it would have been too far if they made him have a whole romance.
Yeah, definitely.
Happen.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. Yeah, so that's why I'm very confident in what I'm saying, is that he was not going to just turn her in. He just gets caught. And then he kind of has no choice but to come clean.
I just, as many times as I've seen it, I never interpreted it that way. I interpreted it as, oh, this is the reveal. He wasn't going to do it. He was going to snitch on her. He hasn't snapped out of it yet.
Yeah, she is what snaps him out of it, which is cool. Anyway, Roose Bolton is preparing for siege. The Ramsay says, why are we getting ready for siege? Let's go out there and crush them. And he's like, why would we do that? We'll definitely win if it's a siege. Because they are literally dying in the snow as we speak. And Ramsay's like, because we can.
Okay.
They're great. I like their dichotomy too. Tyrion and Daenerys, great, discuss their fathers, and Tyrion compliments her decision to reopen the fighting pits and marry his daughter. Of course, some of her worst decision making he's complimentary of. He also reveals it was Varys.
Those are her moments of concessions and trying to make peace.
At no point ever, I'm just going to go ahead and spoil this for people who have not finished the series. At no point ever does Tyrion have a single good idea in the second half of the show. Not one. Literally not one.
Which would make sense if he was on a destructive path, but he's complimenting her peaceful
Her
stuff.
bad
So
decisions.
Now he's here to be the voice of reason instead of Barristan.
She is going to get killed in this fighting pit. And the only reason that she does not get killed is because she has a fucking dragon.
Yeah,
It's a horrible decision.
Yes, but it's also an example of her compromising.
Which was the bad move, wrong move.
She should
In
always
this case.
just do what she thinks is right, and then in that feel more just. And...
Well, that's what she takes away from it. But yeah, anyway, God, he's just the worst advisor of all time. Anyway, he also reveals that it was Varys that brought him to her. She's kind of doesn't really care for that. This is also where she has her corny ass line about breaking the wheel. God, it's just awful. I just hate everything about her this season, quite frankly.
This is brand new because you've never had this feelings out here before.
All right, fair enough. I've never been her biggest fan, but there are moments that are just kind of undeniably great with her in the past. Like, that scene where she takes the Unsullied. That's a legendary scene for good reason.
Yeah.
But then, like, they're trying to make this awesome scene in the fighting pits when they have the big fight and Drogon comes. And to me, it just falls completely flat because I hate every decision that she has made during this season. I cannot care less about those stupid gold mask idiots. And his Dar dies. It's like, great. He meant nothing to me. It's just a complete miss to me.
I don't think Dance of Dragons is going to be your favorite book.
I'm sorry to hear that. Jorah shows back up to his former master, and he says he will still fight for him and Meereen even after he's been sent away by Daenerys. So he's just tenacious.
It's also a Jon Snow book, so.
All right, well, that might help. Cersei continues to refuse to confess to Unella, and she's down to the point where she has to drink water from that she spilled on the floor. She's just at a very low state right now.
Yeah.
Ollie brings Sam some food, and he asks him why Jon is saving the wildlings. And Sam tries to convince him it's for the best, but Ollie's not buying it. He also tells him that sometimes a man has to make hard choices, which confirms in Ollie's mind, okay, well, I guess I'll have to kill him.
That's really interesting. Ollie's psychology and how he gets... I like how they depicted this with Ollie.
Yeah.
You can see him.
And he also, I think it's kind of interesting here, Sam kind of foreshadows Jon's, future, I guess. Where, he's like, he always comes back. It's like...
Why don't we just make this a full spoiler?
That's his direct quote. Most people probably have already seen it. And then finally, the big finale of Hardhome, which is actually like the whole second half of the episode, is Jon and company arriving in Hardhome, where they are ultimately attacked by a giant wave of the undead. They work together to fight them off as best they can, and they save many of the wildlings, or as many of them as they can. But many are killed, and they're resurrected by the Night King. It's also kind of the first time that the Night King is... I think we've seen him before, but he's like actually a character here, sort of.
Mm-hmm. You've got that woman and her children.
Yeah, she's a little one-off. It's pretty cool.
I think she does a really great job.
I do too.
They do a good job of humanizing the wildlings to
Right.
her.
And then during the fight, Jon kills a White Walker with Longclaws. That's a big reveal. I definitely remember that. Like at the time, I was like, "Holy fuck, that was cool."
Valyrian steel.
And so it's the big news that they can be killed with Valyrian steel, which is good news because they do lose the dragon glass during this fight.
Well, because we've seen when Sam had a face-off with the White Walker, his sword shattered.
Well, yeah, and the White Walker shatters other weapons in this battle too.
To remind us, but it's a cool parallel.
Yeah.
Long claws, pretty neat.
Long claws is awesome. That's that episode. It's a really good one. One of the better episodes of Game of Thrones, I would say, just because that whole second half with Hardhome is just excellent.
Yeah.
Really, really good fight.
I watched a video, one of my Song of Ice and Fire YouTubers said it was the last great episode of Game of Thrones start to finish.
Well, that's ludicrous considering the finale of the season is one of the all-time classics. And whenever I go through and tell you everything in that episode, you're going to be like, holy fuck, this is one of the greatest episodes of all time.
All right.
But first we have episode 9, which is the Dance of Dragons, which is also a good episode. But this is, you remember, historically, the 9th episode is always the best. This is the first season where that's not going to be the case because the 10th episode is the best. But
Interesting.
the 9th episode still is good. This is definitely the worst of the 9th episodes because, we have Death of Ned Stark, Battle of the Blackwater, Red Wedding, Battle of the Wall. So it's like literally those might be the 4 best episodes at this point. And then I don't think that's actually true. I think I would probably put the episode where Ned Stark dies a little bit lower. But I think literally my top 3 at this point before season 5 was Battle of the Wall number 1, Battle of the Blackwater number 2, Red Wedding number 3. But anyway, so our penultimate episode for season 5 is called The Dance of Dragons.
Which is a interesting way to phrase it. Obviously, the 5th book in the series is A Dance with Dragons.
Right.
But then it's like the war, the Targaryen Civil War, I believe is referred to as the Dance of Dragons.
Well, that makes a lot more sense. Well, the reason that it's called that is because they reference that in this episode, as you'll see. But first, Ramsay goes behind enemy lines and he burns Stannis' camp. Not good for Stannis, but he still refuses to give up. Jon Snow returns to Castle Black and he lets the wildlings through the gates. This gets a frosty reception. Then we have a lot of Stannis these last couple episodes that I just peak Stannis content as we're getting here.
Well, and I would sorry, just to say real quick, the title also, I think this episode kind of lines up with the end of that book.
Great. Well, I got that extra forward to. So Stannis sends Davos to get food, men, and horses from Castle Black in return for a well-manned night's watch after he's king. That's what he says he's going to offer him.
Maybe it's the next one.
So Davos, he asks to take Shireen with him, but Stannis doesn't allow it. Which we know is because he's already made the decision to burn her ass. But so he needs to get Davos out of there.
Which I believe 100% was George R. Martin's intention. Some people are in denial. And they're like, well, he won't do it in the books. It'll be Melisandre will do it without him.
It's important for his character.
It's vital for his character arc that he be the one to make the decision.
Yeah, there's so much important stuff that happens in that scene, which we'll talk about in a moment. But Davos says farewell to Shireen, his final farewell, unknown to him.
Oh my!
He gives her that wooden stag,
Baratheon
stag. Man,
I love her so much.
She is
together
fantastic.
Like for me, like she is the heart of Davos. She is the heart of Stannis.
Well, I think that those are all good characters even without her. But so Shireen, and I give her a lot of credit here later on whenever we get to my character list.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll go ahead and say it now. Shireen is a character. It's like the golden aspect of a character. Like this is like the best you could hope for whenever you create a character that's not like a main character. She improves every single person that she interacts with.
Absolutely.
And that is like just magic for a side character like that, you know?
You've nailed it, yes. Mm-hmm. And even Selyse. Like
100%. Yeah, I'm definitely including her in that.
And Melisandre, like probably a big part of all my Melisandre hate is and the dynamics there. Like the thing is though, it's different than Selyse because Selyse doesn't see Shireen's value. Until it's too late. Melisandre does, but is willing to sacrifice it.
Right. Well, to me, I always kind of felt like Melisandre saw her value because she could be used as a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Okay, but first, unfortunately, we got some Dornish content. So Jaime has an audience with Prince Doran, and I guess basically the other people that are relevant there. So like Alaria's there. Tristan's there. Marcella's there. So Jaime reveals he came. The only
relevant people in Dorne. No one else.
The black guy. I guess the black guy's there. Jaime reveals he came because they received a threatening message. That's how he always calls it. Received a threatening message about Marcella.
Wasn't it a scorpion?
It was a snake, but it wasn't a living snake. But it was like a effigy of a snake, and it had her necklace.
Right.
So Doran realizes in him telling him this, that this was Alaria's doing. And so now he's put the pieces together. He's like, okay, so they were actually acting rationally given what they knew. And so he toasts to Tommen. Everybody raises their glass for Alaria, pours her shit out on the floor. So Doran agrees to allow Marcella to return to King's Landing. But he insists that Tristane must also accompany them because they are betrothed, and that is part of the deal here. That was what you guys agreed.
So for Mizella, it's like great.
Yeah, and Jamie's fine with it, so all great news all around. And then of course, except for Elari, she's disgusted by all of this. And so I think she kind of storms out.
Well, because, for her, like politically, it's a little bit like giving up a hostage and then giving your own. Like, he's not heir, I think he's second in line, but giving him up, maybe third in line, as a hostage.
Sure.
To people that you.
Well, I think really, to me, what it is, it all just comes down to is she blames the Lannisters for Oberyn's death, and she wants to hurt them in any way that she possibly can.
I guess in the show, let's just assume he's the heir since they cut the other two.
I think that is what we're supposed to assume.
Okay.
Tristane, okay, so Tristane also allows Bronn to live. They leave it up to him, since he was the one that, like, attacked or he hit him or something. As long as he can have that black guy absolutely deck him first.
Arrow.
I can't remember that.
You can't remember arrow.
Maybe
like bow and arrow.
Arrow?
Arrow. It's spelled Aeroh, but you don't have to know that to say it on a podcast.
Well, once I read the book, I'm sure it'll stick out in my mind a lot more. But right now, he's literally never named in the show.
This every time you say it.
Okay. He's never named in the show. We never learn anything about him.
For the listeners, I just did
It's a complete disaster.
Draw on my imaginary bow and arrow. It's pretty much Katniss Everdeen.
But first, we have to get another scene with the sand snakes being absolutely awful in that cell. It's just so bad. Honestly,
didn't she say that this episode was going to be? Oh no, it's the next episode.
This one, I think this scene is worse, maybe than any scene that they've been in so far. Like it's almost like every scene they're in gets worse. So this is the one where they're like playing that stupid hand game, and it's just like, God, who gives a fuck about that dynamic? It's all horrible. Anyway, Arya is getting ready to poison the Thin Man, but then she looks out into the water. And who did she see arriving but Meryn Trant?
Oh, Sir Meryn Trant.
Arriving with the original member of the list. He's arriving with Mace Tyrell, who she doesn't even know or care about at all. But she sees Meryn Trant, and she immediately diverts. Like, the guy is literally begging her for a clam. And she's like, fuck off. Like, she could have easily... Really, what she should have done is just killed them both. But... she's just like, she sees him and she's like, everything else just goes away.
Television.
Yeah. So, she
finally getting some payoff in the storyline.
Mace is just making a complete ass of himself in front of that bankrupt that we always see in the show, the representative of the Iron Bank.
Yeah.
And he's like telling these horrible jokes, like that guy is clearly not amused. And then Meryn Trant...
Mace Tyrell is like the second richest man in the world. He doesn't have to be funny.
Sure.
He pays the people around him to laugh. So now he's in a position with someone that's richer than him, and he has no actual charm.
No, none whatsoever.
He's a buffoon that's been handed everything he has.
Yes. So then Meryn Trant goes to a brothel to rape some children, and Arya is like kind of tracks him there. So she's got him. She's got him dead to rights.
No,
they wanted you to make sure that you hated this guy. If you had forgotten that he beat up Sansa earlier and like all this other shit had done.
Yeah.
And so, but she's like,
killed Syrio, right?
Yeah, obviously that's the reason he's on the list.
Yeah.
He doesn't even Arya doesn't know he beat Sansa. But so she's got him dead to rights at this point because she knows where he is. She knows like what he's there to do. So she's got him, but we don't get the payoff until the next episode, which is, like I said, the episode that absolutely freaking fucks. And then she has to go back to Jack, and then she's like, "Oh yeah, the thin guy wasn't hungry today." He's like, "I'll try again tomorrow." Takes her at her word.
They're very patient.
Yeah.
See, the faceless men, I don't think they emphasize it as much in the show. They're like insanely expensive.
Sure.
Except also like charitable. So like if you bring in your dying little girl, they're like, all right, we'll kill your little girl.
Very
but
odd
otherwise
organization.
It's gonna be like the cost of the Unsullied army to get someone assassinated, which is how they make them not too overpowered where everyone's using them left and right. But then they're gonna get it done. It might not be tomorrow.
But it probably will. If it's Jackin on the job.
Well, but that's what I mean. Like, it's like not a rushed thing. It's not like, oh, all right, we'll try it again tomorrow. We don't need to.
Right.
Like that is okay that she didn't
Mhm.
do it today.
Yeah, there's you obviously don't know about it because we haven't played enough Skyrim, but there is a assassination guild in Skyrim as well, and they're definitely not as deep as the Faceless Men, and they're definitely probably not even as nuanced as the Faceless Men, but there is like a kind of the Faceless Men kind of worship the god of death. There is like that kind of element to it, and or in Skyrim.
Well, do you know like
Might
the
find it
history
interesting.
of the Faceless Men?
No, I don't know that I really need to get into it right now. All right. Alaria has this moment with Doran where she's begging him for forgiveness, and he agrees, and he appears to make nice with she also appears to make nice with Jamie, although she does reveal that she, like everyone else, knows about him and Cersei. I don't know why people even bother like acting like that's like this big thing that they can hold over him at this point, but
Well, it's still the king of the realm is they're calling the king a bastard.
yeah. Except for the problem is everybody knows that.
It's a pretty dangerous thing to tell someone that
I mean,
you're handing off your heir to.
didn't Stannis literally send out a letter to every single holdfast about that information?
Yeah, he did.
I mean, it's not exactly old news.
But he could have just been, disgruntled and
Sure.
stern. He was pushing his own agenda.
Well, Stannis, he's no liar.
Well, we know that.
And now, seeing Stannis, we get the moment. He visits Shireen one last time. She says she wants to help him. And obviously she has second thoughts when she realizes that helping him is actually being burned alive.
Yeah, she's like so supportive, and he interprets like what she says as permission.
Yeah. Oof.
To like live with himself. It's fucked up.
Well, he's just
but
driven to this point. He obviously does not want to do it, but he's
course.
driven
He
there
does love her.
He's driven there by desperation. His men are getting absolutely smoked, both by the snow, but then also literally they got smoked by Ramsay earlier in the episode. And that was kind of a cool scene too, where you didn't even see him do it. You just see like the aftermath. It's like all those tents burning. Very Sephiroth of him. So he's just in a very bad way. And like the snow's not letting up either. So he like has no hope basically of victory. There's really nothing he can do at this. But he convinces himself because he believes in the power of those leeches from earlier, because those people did all drop dead.
Yeah.
That there is power in the blood, and so he thinks that this is going to be what gets him what he needs. So she pleads to her parents for help, and Selyse is swayed. That's part of what makes this scene so good.
Yeah. The fact that she breaks and she begs him, and she's been this diehard believer the whole time, and she doesn't even really like she feels like she's a failure, and she still something comes out in that moment.
Yes, but Stannis won't stop it, and that's that.
It's an interesting parallel to Joel, like kind of a reverse of Joel in The Last of Us.
Yeah.
It's like, what would make you sacrifice everything for one person? Would make you sacrifice that one person for everything?
Well, I don't think Joel would burn Ellie alive for magic. Anyway, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that. And then that should have been the ending of the episode, because there's no following that. But unfortunately, we have Daenerys overseeing the grand opening of the fighting pits in Meereen, where they clearly wanted this to be like the big epic penultimate moment, like they have done in all the other episodes, but it just falls flat.
I'm sorry, just to go back to Stannis.
Do we really have to?
Well, I think the psychology is interesting of all the people that are in such firm denial that this is not where his character was going in the books. And it's the people that want to glorify him and put him up on the pedestal. Like, they enjoy his character for the wrong reasons. When this is a beautiful climax to his character. This is an absolutely brilliant way to...
Well, it's also kind of cool because up to this point, I think probably 100% of the audience is hoping that, he goes and absolutely obliterates the Boltons from Winterfell.
Of course.
But then at this point, this is kind of even a turn for the audience where it's like, there's really no way you can pull for him now.
Yeah, but so many people don't want to stop pulling for him that they're just like, it just can't be. They ruined him. But it's the point of him.
There's a case we've made that it is a more evil act than anything that we see Ramsay do.
I mean, maybe
Ramsay is literally a sadist, and I don't know if he would have gotten enjoyment out of that.
Well, and there's no one saying Stannis enjoyed it.
No,
it was like an ends justify the means type thing, and he's always been very logical and cold and whatever, and it hurt him. And obviously it was the wrong thing to do. Even if it was a guaranteed win, it was the wrong thing to do.
Obviously.
But it's also absolutely everything with his character was leading to that point.
Yeah.
And so for you to say that that point ruined everything, it's like, did you really like the character, or did you like some badass moments?
Well, nobody here is saying that.
I'm sorry. I'm just responding to things that I've heard. There's a lot of fans.
No, I'm a huge Stannis fan.
Sure. And I think you're a Stannis fan for the right reasons.
Well, thank you for that vote of confidence. Daenerys oversees
welcome.
the grand opening of the fighting pits in Marine, in which Jorah completes and barely makes it through with his life. And then afterward, the Sons of the Harpy attack in a huge attack. But thankfully, they've got her dead to rights, but thankfully, Drogon arrives to save the day, and she gets on his back like a badass and gets out of there.
I think what's supposed to be cool about the Sons of the Harpy is the same
Oh,
thing that
please.
hurts them.
Please explain.
Is that like they're masked? Like it's like, who are they? It's mysterious. Who's leading them? I don't know. And that's like more of a mystery in the books. Like there's more of intrigue of like
Is it intriguing?
Who's behind them? But in the show it makes them just literally face like you can't get attached to any of them. So it's literally just like they're fighting zombies.
Well, yeah, and then it doesn't
Like-
help by the fact that what happens if they're successful? They kill Daenerys, great. Don't really give a shit.
Well, that's a you thing, but most people at least give a shit about Daenerys, even if she's not their favorite.
Well, obviously, she'd be a worse character if they killed her, I guess. But you know who is killed during this fight? His Dar Zolorak, rest in peace.
Her one true love
Yep.
that everyone's OTP.
Yeah, we'll see where he ranks for me. I think he ended up being last on Brian's list. His Dar.
Does he really?
I think so. I think he ended up even below Zaro.
Fascinating.
Yep. Okay, and then we have the finale called Mother's Mercy. One of the all-time great episodes of Game of Thrones. Listen to what they packed in here and tell me I'm wrong.
All right.
It starts with Melisandre. She's
Already a problem.
thrilled. The snows are melting. She's like, it's worked. Everything has gone according to plan. This is amazing.
Cannot wait for her to get knocked off her high horse.
Well, it'll take long. She attributes this to the sacrifice of Shireen. However, she and Stannis are horrified to learn that half of his men have left his ass after they are just sickened by what he did.
Beautiful.
And then he also, so then like another guy comes up and he's like, go ahead, it can't be worse than mutiny. And then it's your wife has killed herself because she cannot deal with the grief of what just happened.
Yeah.
And
honestly,
so
for him, probably not worse than mutiny.
no, I think it is. I think that's the point.
You think he really felt that much for his wife?
I do because of the performance in this scene.
Well, that's good. That's cool then.
And then while he's like just seeing his wife's corpse, and he's like cut her down and everything, somebody else comes up to him and he's like, Melisandre's riding out of camp. So he doesn't even have her anymore.
Fucking coward.
And after all of this has happened, he says we march on. We're going to Winterfell.
Of course he does. He's still Stannis.
Mm-hmm. So that's all incredible. Then we have Jon.
What does it say about those men that followed him?
Well, those were his actual loyal men that were left. Everybody that left was like the people that weren't sworn to him from the beginning. Those were just like his sellswords that he had purchased.
Well, a huge part of those were the Florents, which were his wife's people. They called them the Queen's men.
Well, that's interesting. Well, in the show, they don't go into all that. There's not very many people left, as you see whenever we get to the fight scene. Anyway, Jon.
The Valerians stayed.
No, I don't think so. Jon tells Sam of what happened in Hardhome, and Sam asks for leave to take Gilly to Old Town so he can learn to become a maester. Jon doesn't like it, but ultimately he agrees, and off they go. And boy, is it a good thing that he does, because they would have been absolutely fucked.
Great, get them the fuck out of there. And they take
Little Sam.
And
Gilly.
I'm sorry, I'm mistaken. I got the books and the show confused. Moving on.
No, so they take Ghost in the book.
Nope.
Okay. So then we have the Winterfell and Baratheon forces preparing for battle. Meanwhile, Brienne's attention, she's like still like this whole time she's been watching that tower like a hawk. And then
She's very low.
but then like Podrick comes up and he's like Stannis' banner is over there, and she's like, what? So she turns her attention just as she does it. Sansa gets that light lit.
Which is brutal. Because she, you know,
She's-
Sansa already turned her down. This was like a shot in the dark, like maybe if Sansa needs me. But she does turn away from her vow for a second to get that vengeance for Renly.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? I don't know. It works out. But
Exactly.
if Sansa died, would that like have haunted her? But there was no way of her
Definitely.
knowing. No one else is watching.
Well, yeah, she probably wouldn't know that she lit the thing.
But like for us, it's like brutal to see her turn away, like after being so loyal and diligent.
Anyway, this is just an amazing scene. It's like you see, so the Sansa's forces are all out there. They are getting ready for like a siege because that's what they assume that they're gonna do. But then we find out that they went with Ramsay's plan, where they get the full army, all mounted, coming out to him, and like they're all just like, "Well, we're fucked." And Stannis knows it's over. You can see it in his face, but you know, he's Stannis. He's got to take it like a man. So he whips that sword out like a badass.
Stannis the Manus.
And what I love about this scene, well, there's many things that I love about it. But one of the things that I love about it is like you see them get surrounded, but like you do not even see the fight. It's like there's no point in showing it. The massacre's that bad.
Also, we spent all our budget on hard home, so
sure, that's fair. But I think that this actually is enhanced by the fact that you don't even have to see it.
Yeah, I think it's shot really well.
Back in Winterfell, while this fight's going on, Sansa she's like, you know, trying to make her escape. I guess she was like, well, nobody seems to be coming for that light, so I'm just gonna book it out of here myself.
Sure.
And she's caught by Theon and Miranda, and Miranda's got her in her sights, and she's decided, well, I'm not gonna kill you because that would piss Ramsay off, but he doesn't need all of you or whatever. Just the parts to make an heir. And so this is the point where like Theon, he has his Darth Vader moment. He can't have it, he can't take it. And so he throws her off of that balcony. She dies instantly on impact. And then she and Sansa just had to get the fuck out of there because like right when that happens, it's like the gates open. Here comes Theon's forces victorious from battle.
Yeah. So they jump into the snow.
So yeah, in desperation, they jump off the wall into the snows, which, I mean, I guess the only reason you can argue that they would have survived is because it snowed. But
well, yeah, it's like a
ridiculously far fall.
Huge pile of snow. So it like cushions them.
Yeah.
I don't know the physics on that, but
yeah, I don't either.
I buy it.
Yeah, you're gonna have to. Okay. Already everything that I've told you has been ludicrously awesome. This episode would already be a masterpiece if it just stopped there.
Okay.
What's next? Well, we have Arya crossing Meryn Trent off her list in badass fashion. So the way that they like build it up is she takes the face of the little girl that she gives the water to like earlier in the season. And so like he's like beating on all these little girls or whatever. And then like this one little girl's not reacting to it. And then
she's been all tough.
Yeah. And then she like takes her face off and she stabs his ass in the eyes and blinds him. And then like she's like, it is a slow assassination.
Yeah.
She does not worry about taking her time.
It's good he sent those other girls away because he was gonna have like
they would have been scarred.
Yeah, it would have been very.
Of course, they probably were anyway. But yeah, it's just a very satisfying scene. It's like the first time, like obviously Arya's killed people up to this point, but she's never really killed him in the fashion like she wanted to. This is the first assassination where it's like this went exactly like she planned. You know, and it's
she
just
had a chance with the Hound, but by that point she had a more nuanced.
Yeah, she decided not to do it. Yeah,
or she decided that it would. It's kind of ambiguous.
No, it's not. It's not ambiguous because in season 6, while she's getting questioned, they're asking her about all the people on her list, and then whenever she says the Hound, they slap her because she's like, a girl had taken him off the list.
Okay.
Which I think is actually a cool moment. But yeah, this assassination of Meryn Trant is so great. But then she gets back to Jack and Nagar, and you know, basically she's caught like returning the face. And so then we have like kind of this weird sort of sequence where Jaqen and the Waif are there. Jaqen drinks this poison and dies. But then like it's not really Jaqen or whatever. Like the Waif was the one that was actually Jaqen in this scene.
Yeah. Face swap.
Yeah, then she like starts ripping faces off of this corpse, and like one of them is hers. Like it looks like her.
Which doesn't make sense because I thought that they've established that you have to kill them and then like rip it off their corpse.
It doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's cool thematically, I guess that's all they really cared about. It's very similar to a scene in The Empire Strikes Back, which is also all vision-y.
Okay. Well, I think the faceless magic is less concrete in the books.
Okay.
Like in the show, it kind of implies you have to be like carrying around the face in a bag after you've killed someone and cut it off them. And
Okay.
then, whereas I think it's just more abstract in the books.
But then Jack and Rube says this line that for the faces are only for no one. If you're not no one, then they're poison. And so then she loses her vision.
Mm.
So that's kind of a cliffhanger for that character. But anyway, still awesome. The whole assassination of Marion Trant. So we got two awesome things that have happened so far. Now this one I'm still going to argue is actually a really good scene, even though it involves the sand snakes, and it actually involves your worst. This is the line that you think is the absolute worst line.
This line I thought was so bad. We were showing Andrew's brother Brandon.
Yeah, that's what prompted this whole rewatch.
And he knew I loved it. Like he knew that it's one of my obsessions.
And me, he knew it. We both loved it.
Yeah, it's
and
like,
he was loving it as well.
And we heard this line, and I was like, I am embarrassed.
Yeah, she was like, we should just have never done this. It's how bad this line is. But anyway, Jamie and company are taking their leave of Dorne, but first Ilaria plants a nice smacker on Marcella. And then one of the sand snakes gives what Reagan thinks is the worst line in the show, right?
Possibly.
Where she says,
"It's
what does she say? She says, he wants the good girl, but he needs the bad pussy.
something like that."
It's just, and then she like bites his ear or something.
Yeah, it's
Truly horrific.
It's like if you took Tyrion's little chomp in episode 1
The chomp. The chomp is hilarious.
and dragged it out and threw words in it.
Oh my gosh.
It's like that type
Just
of
think about that
uncomfortable.
level of writing versus what did Partagaz say in that Andor episode today? He said recalibrate your excitement or something like that.
Something.
God, that was hilarious.
Recalibrate your enthusiasm.
Yeah, recalibrate your enthusiasm. God, that's a S tier line versus this F minus tier line, like
Yeah.
the bottom of the barrel.
And
Anyway,
I'm not a prude. It's not that. I know we complain a lot about the sex scenes.
the acting is terrible, and the character.
And the right, it's
Just all of it is
all
terrible.
around just terrible.
So all that is terrible. I'm not going to disagree with you on that. But on the ship, Jamie and Marcella have that moment
They have a
together.
good moment.
And they reconnect. She reveals that she did know that he's his father, and she's happy about that fact. It's like maybe Jamie's top moment that we've seen this entire series. I don't know if he's ever happier than in this moment.
Which is angelic of her because he's gray at best. You know, like he has not been a great father.
No, but she obviously cares about him more than she did about Robert.
Sure.
So it's actually a really great scene. And then it turns to horror when she dies from the poison from Ilaria Sand's lips. So yes,
it is a good scene.
All of the Dorne stuff is bad, but except this one payoff, I do think is very good.
It's just imagine if they had all of that stuff had been good, and then we got this.
Well, that would have been better. This moment would have probably ranked even higher. Anyway, so that's 3 really great moments already.
But
I'm counting that.
Again, this is all. So I guess that's an example of the show did one scene well of everything that they took out of Dorne and replaced. Because Jamie does not go south to Dorne. Like that's all made up.
All right. Well, maybe they were like, well, we'll have this one great scene, and then we got to figure out a way to get there. And some stuff happens, sand snakes are.
Oh, you could just say that's also how they did the ending.
Yeah, you could say that. Okay, so then Daenerys' crew just considers what to do in her absence because she has vanished on the back of Drogon.
Oh, yeah.
And ultimately they decide that Jorah and Daario should go out to look for her, while Tyrion remains to guide the city in Daenerys' absence. A horrible plan.
By himself, surely they leave someone with him.
Well, luckily...
Missandei.
Well, Missandei stays, yeah. But then outside, Varys finally shows up, and so he's going to at least have Varys helping him. And I think it's supposed to be a moment of excitement where you're like, oh, man, this is great. We loved Varys and Tyrion in Season 2 when they were running King's Landing.
Except that they also gave them to us at the beginning of the season where they weren't great.
Right, I know. So, but this one, it's like at least they're back in their position that they were in, kind of, Season 2. So maybe in Season 6 they'll be great. Doesn't turn out that way. But that, I think, is what they're kind of hoping that the audience is feeling at this moment.
And I do remember being excited to see like Tyrion interact with Daenerys and have Tyrion and Sarah join this crew and help her and stuff. So that worked until you know what the payoff's going to be.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't.
And then we get Daenerys. She's with Drogon. She can't get him removed, so she leaves to find some food. And then she is intercepted by the return of the Dothraki. They bring out their boom music.
When it should be jingle, 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 jingle,
Sure.
dingling.
So, but she drops the ring as a clue for anyone that comes looking for her.
Mhm.
That's the end of her character for this season. But then we get, as if we haven't passed. So okay, those aren't as good. But we got all the Stannis stuff. And I guess did I not even? I might not have even written it in my notes. But which is kind of a big oversight on my part. But like all that stuff with the battle with Stannis, it culminates with Brienne killing his ass.
Oh, I guess you didn't write it.
Like whenever she diverts, like she doesn't do that for nothing. She does
Yeah,
go,
yeah.
she does track him down and kill him. But it's like a cool
And
moment.
it's good, yeah.
It's a cool moment because like there's like a couple people that find him. And he actually fights them off. He's horribly injured at this point. But he fights both those guys off, and then like they injure him to the point where he's like kind of leaning against this tree, and then Brienne walks up. He actually reacts to her before you get to see her. He said, like, so just in case you didn't know who it was, he says, "Bolton's have women fighting for him now," and that's how you know that he's fought.
Yeah.
And so like she reveals who he is, or who she is, and yeah, he knows that he's done for whenever she announces all that, and so he just tells her to do her duty.
And there's really, I guess my complaint with that would be there's no consequences for her as a character. Like she kind of gets best of both worlds where
Why
she
would there
gets to
be?
go and
She deserves it. Does everybody have to be tormented? And she
Well,
does get
by
some.
picking
She
vengeance
gets
over
plenty
her
of sadness. Oh, I guess, but she gets plenty of sadness later on.
sure, it's just like generally I like when vengeance quests isn't just like, and then they got vengeance, and then it was yay.
Well, I think in this case it's not really a vengeance quest. I think he was guilty of the crime, and she brought him to justice.
Abby was guilty of the crime.
Yeah, I know that's true.
Doesn't mean that.
I just don't. I don't
There are
really. I mean, you're.
made.
I don't really. I don't think that's what they were going for. The whole. Oh, she gave up her sworn duty to go kill this guy. I mean, maybe they were to a degree, but like before that, she had that agreement with
Catelyn,
Catelyn.
that
I
she
mean,
would get to do it.
that
You're
was her. Well, I mean, even before she even knew who Catelyn was, her mission was to kill Stannis.
right. Mhm.
So, really, she's fulfilling her original task. Anyway, it's a great moment. So that's an amazing moment. You have the assassination of Mary Trant, which is an amazing moment.
What I was gonna say was Stannis's resignation to it
It's really good.
is really good.
You get Marcella and Jamie, which is an amazing moment. And as if that wasn't, we didn't pack enough awesome stuff in here yet. We have Cersei confessing to the High Sparrow.
Oh boy.
Although she does not admit it to her relationship with Jamie, she does admit to relationship with Lancel. And so she says her trial will prove her innocence and agrees to allow her to return to the Red Keep after her atonement.
Well, the thing is, admitting to the Jamie thing would not be beneficial to the High Sparrow because the king that put him in power, I mean, we know it was Cersei, but the king that is giving him legitimacy right now would be a bastard if she admitted to
Yeah,
that
I don't really
part.
look at it that way. I mean, yes, that is objectively true, but I think that the idea is that when she really has her trial, she's still going to get pinned for that relationship. It's just he's kind of letting her off the hook right now because she's at least confessing to the one. And he also knows that she's going to be fucking humiliated on the way too.
I don't think he would ever make her confess to Jamie. I think that would take away his platform.
I guess we just disagree about that. I think he absolutely would have made her confess to that at her actual trial.
Well, then what? And then do what to Tom?
Well, figure it out. Maybe get rid of him, and then we'll have no king. Make him the king.
Well, all right.
Who's gonna stop him? Because if that was the case, if she had nothing else to lose, then she could have just gone to her trial. But she knew that she was guilty of a whole lot more than sleeping with Lancel. She was like, well, I can't go to that trial.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, right now she has to do her walk of atonement. It consists of walking naked from the Sept to the Keep. Another legendary scene from Game of Thrones. Actually, the very first scene that your father tried to spoil for me whenever we told him that we were watching Game of Thrones. So, kind of tells him where his, I don't know, where the scene ranks for him, I guess. But when
Memorable.
When she
It
finally,
was traumatizing for her to film.
I believe it. When she finally makes it, she's greeted by Kyvern, ever faithful, and
Throws a blanket on her.
the newly revived Gregor Clegane. Great reveal.
Carries her out.
Oh, so good.
But it really, really brilliant performance.
Amazing
by Lena
performance
Headey.
and very awesome scene for, not necessarily the fun scene, but it's just
No.
like it's the lowest point of that character. And so to see it's so it's like very important, I think, for her character arc. If they strip her of her hair, she doesn't have her hair anymore.
What's the most humbling thing you can imagine for this character that's been so defined by her pride and her station and her narcissism?
And frankly, her disdain for the common people.
Oh yeah, her feeling of superiority.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's, I mean, just the most humbling thing, and you feel bad for her. Like they make you.
Well, yeah, I think that's
crazy.
kind of part of the genius of the scene. If you're not a sadist like your father, I think the idea is, well, he was loved the scene.
You don't think for the reasons that we're appreciating it now?
Probably not. He probably thought, well, she's getting hers. I feel like a lot of people probably did take it that way, but I think the intention for the enlightened among us is
Sure.
that you don't like get off on it, like that you do feel bad for her, because this is a character that you have hated realistically if they've been doing their job correctly, which they have, because I remember watching the show for the first time.
You despised her.
You have hated her for 5 seasons, and she is getting all of the shit thrown back in her face, literally.
Like Theon.
And so but like, I think if this scene does its job correctly, which I think it does, you actually feel bad for her, even though you have been like waiting for her to get her comeuppance, as Mom says, for this entire time. It's just really good stuff.
Yeah,
And then the reveal that the mountain is back is just glorious, as we find out later.
so too. I mean, painful to watch, and like it's not like a fun like highlight reel.
No.
But it is
clearly another
really
standout
moment.
legendary scene. 4 of those now in this episode, and as if that wasn't enough, the finale. Jon Snow refuses to aid Stannis because Davos is there trying to get him to send aid because he doesn't know he's dead. Because of moot point when Melisandre arrives, and she didn't even say anything, but it's just like her presence sort of lets them know that things did not go too well.
Yeah.
And that night, he's working on his desk, and he's like, damn, Stannis is dead. This is rough stuff. He's like working on some other things. And then Ollie comes in, and he says, we know where your uncle is. Or there's a wildling, it says he does. And so he runs out of there, and he goes over there to this corner where it's a trap laid by Sir Alistair and all those other assholes, and they stab his ass.
It's a mutiny.
And Ollie plunges the final knife himself
For the watch.
And he dies in the snow.
And that's the end of the books.
Yeah, me and Brandon were talking about that whenever he was over here this week. I was like, we just kept going. I was like, can you imagine waiting a whole year about Jon Snow's death and just being like having to just live with that? And he was just like, that is just ridiculous.
You were so bummed.
Oh yeah.
I was trying so hard to get you to watch more episodes as soon as possible because I was depressed. I was like, I'm so sorry to do this to you. How can I make this go away? I know that I have in my toolbox something to make you feel better, but you're just like too sad. You're just like, oh, what's the point? Justin's gone.
I think the reason that this hurt me so much is because obviously he's my favorite character, but I've lost favorite characters before that. So it wasn't necessarily that. I think what it really was is it just like his arc was so clearly unfinished. Like he just had that face off with the Night King. It's like, really? We're not going to have any payoff on that? And also, like, he carried this season on his back, especially for the first half. And
so, I don't think you're giving Cersei and Marjorie enough credit there.
What? But Marjorie's not even in the second half of the season.
Well, like their little rivalry and the High Sparrow.
Most of that is in previous. Yeah, High Sparrow. He's great. Most of that is in previous seasons. This is just kind of the ending of it. Well, not the final ending of it, but big They don't interact with each other like really anymore after this. But yeah. I mean, are you trying to disagree? Clearly, you think Jon Snow is the best character. I mean, at best, you could argue Stannis, I guess.
Of the season?
Yeah, of this season, like the MVP of this season.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, we'll talk about it when
I
we get to
didn't make
my
a list.
top moments.
Okay.
Jon Snow definitely has the most. But yeah, clearly an amazing episode of Game of Thrones.
Sure.
All right,
Now there are changes there
I believe it.
that are probably because he was like the last one where like start to finish, like nothing makes me really mad. And there are changes in that episode that I could see why he would have that one on the list.
Well,
He's like, there's really great moments after this, but every episode
So
after
there
this
are.
has stuff that pisses me off.
well, he just needs to get over it. Peak television is still on the way.
With House of the Dragon.
There's some good stuff in that.
We are just loving rewatching House of the Dragon.
Well, we're only 3 episodes in, but yeah. When you actually like understand everything,
Mhm.
it's a show that really shines on a rewatch. Turns out.
Now, I've only read Fire and Blood up through where the show has gotten to,
Good for you.
which is more than you've read.
No, but I have read the Heritage of the Kings, unfortunately.
Can you? Why did you do that?
I didn't do it on purpose.
Andrew was writing down names in the back of the book, and he was like, "Well, I'll just write down the Succession."
Well,
After we were already watching House of the Dragon, where Succession is a pretty big deal.
it definitely is.
If you have not watched House of the Dragon and don't want to spoil it for yourself, I do not recommend.
Don't flip to the back of the book. Oh, that's for sure.
Although also there's a few episodes of Game of Thrones you should probably.
Well, one in particular. I didn't notice till this. That might be a bigger spoiler than anything.
Sure.
Anyway, ready for my top moments?
Okay.
So I had 14. So I just want to point out, and historically, I don't remember exactly how many moments I had from each season. I know from season 1 it was like 20 something. It's ludicrous how many moments I had. That season is absolutely incredible. Then it was like down to like 8 for season 2 and season 3.
Okay.
And season 4 it went back up.
To what?
I don't remember, but it was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
This one is like definitely less than season 4 and 1.
Okay. But 14.
14. So more than season 2 and 3. Number 14.
And at some point you thought this might be the best season.
Yeah, the Jon Snow fan of me. So that's well, I don't think I said it was the best season overall because I've maintained it. 6.
Up to this point.
Yeah. Up to this point, I definitely thought that. I do not think that now after analyzing it. But there's still a lot of great stuff about it, including these 14 moments. So 14 is Barristan's last stand. It's not
Really?
not super high, but I did think it was worth it just because, like I said earlier, I really like how they had built up his skill, but we'd never actually seen it until this moment.
Yeah. I do like that in theory. It's just it's hard for me to disconnect from the disappointment of not.
Right.
Okay,
I do
right.
understand that. And that's why it doesn't rank as highly as maybe it would have. But I think that he at least goes out on a high because like right before this is where he has that moment where he's talking with Daenerys about how great Rhaegar was.
Which is brilliant. Like that's the next best thing we could get to her actually getting to talk to Maester Aemon. Is at least getting to talk to someone that knew her dad well.
Yeah. So
that wasn't biased against him.
Right. Number 13, I have Marcella's final moments. We got that one scene from the Dornish plot that made it on the list.
Sweet baby.
The kiss of death. Literal kiss of death. Yeah, it's a good scene.
And Marcella's not perfect. Like she is spoiled and has some of that superiority complex. You see it in the books when she thinks that Arya is a peasant girl.
Mm-hmm.
When she's running past her, and she's like not as sweet to Arya as she is to everyone else.
Well, she's a lot older now than she was in that scene.
No, yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying she's not like completely one-dimensional.
But anyway, I already talked about why I liked it. I think that for Jaime, I think this literally might be his high point in the entire show. Like this might be the happiest that he ever is in all of Game of Thrones for 10 seconds.
My boy.
Which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
And like Ilaria's saying, like she got what she wanted and she stuck it to the Lannisters, all right.
It's almost dreamlike how like he couldn't have even dreamed that she was
exactly. He's like so shocked.
And the way it feels like you're like on a like that ship is like, you're floating, you're dreaming, and then it all comes crashing down like in a nightmare.
Right. Very good
Her
stuff.
mouth starts bleeding.
Number
Nose or whatever.
number 12, I had the death of Jon Snow. Now, might have retired. It wasn't for later events. But I do think that kind of mutes the impact of the scene. But so in that sense, it's kind of hard to give it full credit. But it on original watching it for the first time, it's obviously, I would say, up there with the most shocking scenes in the show on first watch. And it's worth remembering, like I said earlier with Brandon, that people had to wait an entire year to see the fallout of this.
Book readers are still waiting.
Book readers are still waiting, technically. And then, as I noted, it was my lowest moment. We all have our different lowest moments in the show. With Brett, it was the death of Oberyn.
For me, it was next season.
Really?
Oh,
it's not Sansa getting raped.
Well,
or the Sand Snakes.
Those are low in different ways. Like in terms of me, like grieving a character. Like those are more.
So your low moment is my high moment.
In terms of the first time
Oh
I
my
watched
gosh,
it, like,
that is crazy.
It was the biggest loss to me.
That's very interesting. And then this was
Obviously,
mine.
it's epic now.
Sure. But yeah, this was mine. Although now, like I said, kind of muted by what happens later. Number 11.
The Sansa
God, it's a shame to not put it any higher than this. But number 11 I guess it just tells you how good my top 10 moments for this season are. Number 11, I have the Walk of Atonement.
Wow. After all that praise.
Well, it's a very famous scene. I think part of it is like you said, it's not a enjoyable scene, really. But I think it's an important scene. And certainly you could argue, obviously she's been built up from the beginning of this series, but to this moment in particular, you could kind of argue is the beginning of her turn to one of my all-time favorite characters in anything ever.
Yeah.
So we have to wait till next season to fully get the fruits of that. But then number 10, this is probably a controversial pick to have above the Walk of Atonement because it's nowhere near as famous. But number 10 is
High Sparrow and Olenna talking.
Theon's turn. Because it's just so built up, for so many seasons.
Yeah.
And like you don't even I remember Brandon watching it, like whenever he's getting tortured by Theon or by Ramsay in season 3, you're just like kind of just writing this character off. You're just like, oh geez, we're done with this guy. He made his mistakes, he killed those boys, and now he's getting his just desserts, and that's it for Theon. And it's like you don't even really expect his character to continue to the point that he does, and to like actually break out of that. Like I said, his Return of the Jedi moment.
Well, it's similar to what they do to Cersei, where they like beat him down until you feel bad for it.
Well, I understand
then they come out of it.
At no point did you think Cersei was gonna die on that walk. This is like, I didn't think that Theon would see season 4, much less season 5, much less season 8.
Sure.
So like this is like a big deal for me. And then we've already kind of talked about how I feel about the relationship that he has with Sansa. That it is the threat of Sansa being hurt imminently, and that he could do something about it in this moment that snaps him out of it, And I do think that there are, I've kind of joked about it, but I do think there's huge parallels between Return of the Jedi with Darth Vader, where Luke is literally getting tortured by the Emperor.
Spoilers.
He's going to kill him unless Darth Vader does something, like right now. And so he throws him off the balcony.
Mm-hmm.
But then somehow he returns. We're not worry about that.
The spoilers.
Number 9 is, I called it The Table's Turn. Which you could also call, this is the moment where Cersei knew she fucked up. Her elevation of the High Sparrow and his men did spell the fall of the Tyrells. It accomplished what she set out for it to do, but it also left her open to the same fate thanks to her many ungodly deeds. And it's just another thing that I really kind of like about it is like that little fling she has with Lancel is like so forgettable. You almost like I bet a lot of people do actually forget about that happened.
Which, like, what other show would you forget that the queen fucked her cousin?
Right. It's just like such a unimportant thing in the grand scheme of things. You think at the time.
Yeah. Well, and they remind you of it when he goes all
that's sure
saved or whatever.
And that's also great foreshadowing too, because you should know if you're thinking about it. Like, damn, she's really leaving herself open here.
But you don't, because no one thinks about Lancel.
Right. It's to me, it's very similar in a way with Oberyn in the last season, where it's like as soon as like when they reveal the Mountain is who Tyrion's gonna have to fight in his trial, you should just be like, well, I mean, immediately you're just like, well, he's fucked because no one can defeat the Mountain, obviously. But immediately you should be thinking, well, Oberyn's whole purpose for coming here is to kill this man.
But you don't.
But you don't even think about it.
It's
right.
That one's really brilliantly
So
done.
this one, I think, it's obviously not quite as good as that one, but I think that there are some parallels to it. And then
Yeah.
also just Cersei's performance here is so unbelievably good. We talked about her smugness coming down that hallway, and then
Yeah,
just
this moment has to start with that smug smile.
how quickly it changes.
Yeah.
It's just so good. Okay, that's my number 9. My number 8, I called The First Name, which refers to one of the most satisfying scenes in the show, I would argue, in which Arya finally crosses off the first name on her list. The reason she has a list. Aaron Tran, the killer of Syrio Forel.
Man, the Hound laughed at.
Yeah, I know. I love that too. I don't think Aaron Tran is a very good character, but I love the way that other people react to him. You know?
Yeah.
Like he's just kind of a joke to a lot of people, but then like to Arya, she built him up as just this like ultimate evil at the beginning. I mean, also later on, like there's later characters on the list that are probably worse, but
gets her on the list. Gets him on her list is follow orders in the same way the Hound does.
Oh, sure. Well,
now
what he does is way less brutal than what the Hound does. The Hound kills a young child.
Yeah.
Whereas he kills a guy that, that he didn't need to kill him, but
so then, they got to throw in he's a terrible
man, at least. Well, we already knew that because we'd seen him
pedophile.
We'd seen him beat on Sons and stuff. So to us, he was already like irredeemable. But yeah, then they push it over the edge just in case you forgot.
For the Sansa haters out there.
Sure, I guess that's fair. One of the most grotesquely evil men in all of Westeros, actually, if you think about it.
Yeah.
But man, he man.
And that's a tough list to make.
I've
tried.
Right. He'd have to be up there. He's just beating the hell out of children, and then he finds one that it's too much fun.
You'd have to open a philosophy book, I think, to really try to make that list.
Definitely.
That's a great one. Scale of harm is hard because, like, obviously Tywin has like a huge scale of things.
Yeah, but he has panache.
So yeah, like a lot of the Riverland stuff. Do you put it on the Mountain? Do you put it on Tywin, who ordered it? You really want to put Gilly's dad on there.
But who did he kill?
But in terms of like scale, well, lots of babies. Actually,
sure, that's true. Well, technically, he just gave him up.
Well, if he left him out in the snow.
In a way, they lived forever until season 8. Anyway, episode.
He is the real Night King.
Yeah, you could argue that. Number 7, very different scene from Death and Revenge, is the "You Are My Daughter" scene with Stannis and Shireen.
Oh,
so cool. Genuinely touching scene, which of course kind of hits harder considering it comes from Stannis, who is not a touching man.
Yeah,
and just him telling that story is just awesome.
Is that also where they talk about the Dance of Dragons?
Oh, no, I think that's that's later on.
And that's not
that's
really
our last scene.
With that one, they don't actually spoil anything other than there's
no, they don't. Yeah, they just say that there's a.
And I really love her answer.
But I mean, I guess that was kind of a spoiler to me. That would have been a spoiler to me if I was only in
knew what you were looking for.
Well, because like to me, when you're watching House of the Dragon, like literally at the end of that first episode, I was like, oh, okay, so the King versus Daemon, that's the story.
See, I knew the premise going to House of the Dragon.
I knew nothing. That Alicent to me, like I had no idea how important she was going to be.
But so I guess once you've seen season 1,
right? Then it's
not a spoiler.
It's kind of like Robert dying in season 1 of Game of Thrones, and we got to figure out who's going to be the king, the War of the Five Kings. It's like that happens pretty early, but if you don't know that, then that's a pretty big spoiler. Yeah, it's a pretty big deal when he goes down. Anyway, it's a great scene. Made all the more tragic considering the fate of these characters. Just a few episodes later. Really good stuff from Stannis. Number 6, I called it Janos' last mistake.
Oh.
Jon Snow continuing his streak of badass moments in season 5. Execution of Janos Slynt after he refuses a command. I've talked about the little touches there. Jon slamming his cup down before getting up to do the deed. Stannis nod of approval.
Those last words of "No, I'm sorry, I'll go." I just like crumble. I'm just like, Just let him go.
The
Just-
words
just
that
do it.
yeah, well, we definitely had different reactions to the scene because literally the words I have written down here. So many great little touches here, like John slamming his cup down before getting up to do the deed, and Stannis' nod of approval after he hacks Slint's stupid head off with one swift stroke. I have no remorse for that man at all. So that's number 6. Number 5 is the new Lord Commander from episode 2. One of the many great Jon Snow scenes in season 2, where he is elected the new Lord Commander of the Night's Watch over Alistair Thorne, following the impassioned speech from Sam listing his accomplishments. And then I think a big part of why I would love it anyway, obviously, it's Jon Snow being awesome, but also just the fact that Mace Rayman is one that breaks the tie. Such a great moment. Great touch. Number 4, interrupted immolation, which is another
Interrupted immolation.
Yeah, you know what immolation means?
No.
It's like where you death by burning.
Oh.
So it's another ludicrously cool scene by Jon Snow, in which Stannis is having Mance Rayder burned for refusing to kneel to him while everyone watches, including the wildlings. Just when things are starting to get bad, Jon Snow executes him by arrow, saving him and his people from undue suffering.
I wonder if Davos had faced Stannis again after burning Shireen. You think he
Yeah.
would have pulled a sword?
Maybe.
He was ride or die for Stannis, but his
He cared. He
Shireen
definitely
had his
cared.
heart.
He definitely cared about Shireen more than Stannis.
Mhm.
That's my number 4. Number 3, I have, well, kind of hard to narrow it down, but just all of the hard home sequence.
Yeah.
I mean, here's what I wrote here. Everyone remembers it for the awesome action sequences that make up the second. It's like a 30-minute arc. It's the action is in the second half, and that is understandable. It is appropriately thrilling. It's filled with great moments of valor from Ed and Tormund and Jon Snow, obviously, and
that woman.
Karis is her name. I looked her up.
Chris. Thank you.
Who finds out, and then of course we find out that Valyrian still kills White Walkers in an epic moment. But I actually think the reason that this scene works as well as it does is because of the setup in the first half, where it's not just her, it's the various leaders of the wildlings that are kind of introduced here, and they react differently to Jon's cause.
Mhm.
Kind of hammers the whole thing home. And then of course, Karis, I do think, is a big part of that. She it's kind of skeptical at first, but she ultimately is convinced to do it because she has the daughter, who she dies trying to protect.
And succeeds. The daughter lives.
Mm-hmm. And I do think it's also critical. Like, this is kind of obvious. I'm not saying anything that is profound here, but this is a very important sequence for relaying the power of the Night King.
And it's intimidating.
And building up that conflict and how insurmountable of a task it is to defeat him. And that moment.
Just the fact that, like, all that effort, all those people they lost are now another thing that's going to be used against them.
It's awesome. So that moment where Jon and it's like a really great ending where Jon and company are forced to just watch, and it's just dead silent when all those people gather. There's no music or anything. Kind of like it kind of reminded me of Infinity War, like the end of Infinity War, when it's like there's no music at all when all those people are getting blinked or whatever they do. Really great stuff. That's my number 3. Number 2, Stannis' Last Stand. So this is this family dead, his forces decimated, Melisandre on the run. He is faced with insurmountable odds against the Boltons, but he still leads his men into a slaughter, and with him at the front, sword out, like a badass, and he actually survives the brunt of the fighting, only to be executed by Brienne of Tarth as punishment for his assassination of his brother all those seasons ago. As with everything else, Stannis takes it like a man. Meanwhile, Ramsay celebrates another easy victory.
Well, and is it sunk cost fallacy? Is it just like, well, I killed her for this, like I'm not stopping now, I'm going to see it through?
I've thought about that. I think that another way that you could look at it is just
stubbornness,
a suicide.
Yeah, but he didn't have to take all his men down.
He didn't,
with them.
But well, I mean, I think in the back of his mind, like, he was still hopeful that it might work out. But
he's a pragmatist.
Ultimately, I think he knew that it was doomed. But he was like, I'm clearly going to die here. I really have nothing left to live for anymore. But I think like he's a kind of a character that cares about history too, and like he wants to have gone down fighting, which he does. And so I think he's willing. I don't think he really cares about his men at this point. Like, he's kind of just like numb after the horror of what has happened to him in the last
Well, he sacrificed
tenants.
Shireen, so sacrificing anyone else is nothing.
Right. And then like he's lost his wife and everything, and it's just a complete disaster. He knows that he fucked up.
Mhm.
And I think that it like all of that is probably part of it. But I do think there is a suicidal angle to it.
Okay, interesting. I think there's a lot to chew on there and a lot of interpretations, but I like yours.
I love that moment overall. But then
Wait, before you tell me your number one, we got to do some honorable mentions that you've clearly left out.
okay.
Shireen teaching anyone to read,
Well,
obviously.
that goes pretty fast. But yes, that's fine.
And then there was something else.
Was it Olenna and the Sparrow?
Well, that's obvious.
I liked it fine, but there's so many other great Olenna scenes. I don't know. Like it's a good moment, but not one that I thought was so sweet.
What about any of the Marjorie, Cersei standoffs?
I just think their best stuff is behind
Marjorie's wedding.
Marjorie. Well, that comes and goes so fast.
Yeah.
It's a huge disappointment compared to all the other weddings we've had.
And then there was one more that I actually thought you would think had merit, but I can't remember it now. So tell me your number one.
Number one, to me, a slam dunk here has the clear number one moment.
Oh, Maester Aemon going out.
I thought about Maester Aemon going out. That's a good honorable mention for sure. But I don't know. There's other Maester Aemon stuff that hit harder, I guess, for me.
Sure.
I was being pretty harsh about what I am letting on the list at all.
Okay.
I mean, to be fair, you could argue I'm not being harsh enough because I think my bottom moment is, but I just love it so much. But the Hound reacting to Meryn Trant being the first person on their list. It's just Meryn Trant. And he's just ludicrous to him. Anyway. But my number one, Stannis sacrifice.
I thought it was going to be the Sand Snakes. That's so weird.
It's not. Stannis sacrifice. I think Serene getting burned, I think actually I would put as the most disturbing scene in the show.
That's fair. Episode one
And there's
of House
no
of the
shortage
Dragon
of contenders.
has one to
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
rival it for me.
But I don't think I would put that above this in terms of how disturbing it is.
I think it's easier for me to put myself in the shoes of the person in House of Dragon season 1
Okay.
than Shireen.
That's
Like
fair.
it's more abstract. I can't imagine being burned alive.
Well,
The fear is harder for me to put myself in the shoes of.
it's just, I mean, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm a cold bastard, but I really don't care about Emma very much in House of the Dragon.
Sure.
She's there for like 30 minutes. But Shireen is like this incredible
Yeah.
character that's been built up for many seasons.
But how did
And
they
who
do
did
that without traumatizing
who
that
did
young
absolutely
actress?
nothing wrong.
Nothing. Not a thing in her whole life.
And you know, there is no shortage of contenders for disturbing scenes for sure. But I think this one, just like the screams that she does, is just wow. Very good acting from her as always.
Yeah.
But he's just driven to desperation and frankly madness at this point after Ramsay has just decimated his camp in a sneak attack. He allows Melisandre to burn Shireen as a sacrifice to the Lord of Light to give him power. Shireen's performance is devastating, very convincing. But really, the reason that I love this scene so much is the performance of Selyse.
Yeah, she really came out of nowhere as like a
well, because like
and we needed to like be as disgusted by her as we were leading up to this as a mother.
Well, just like she's been from up to this point, she has appeared to be a full devotee of the faith the entire show.
Mm-hmm.
She there's one little moment where if you're watching close, you can kind of see her waver a little, but she like steals herself real fast.
Yeah, but she bought into it way before Stannis. She's to the point where she's like, yeah, fuck my husband. Like,
well, she even tries to convince herself in this moment that it's for the best, but then she just can't do it, and so she just like completely breaks, and she like tries to save her daughter, who we've only ever seen her show disdain for up to this point. She's unsuccessful, and then ultimately, obviously, takes her own life in the next episode. But it is an awesome turn and like climax for that character, and it takes that character from being like a what's Catelyn's sister's name, like that
Lysa.
kind of Lysa Arryn level character to a really really good character.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Right.
And just such an interesting foil the way that they flip in that moment.
Right. So that's my number one moment from this season.
And also, fuck Melisandre.
Sure. So then I got to rank the episodes. I don't think there's ever been such a gap. Well, a lot of the season 2 stuff I had pretty low, and then of course I had Battle of the Blackwater as my number one until season 4.
Mm-hmm.
But This, I think, has the lowest of the low, and then that episode that I just talked about, the finale, is almost the tippy top. I wouldn't put it above. I still don't think I'd put it above the Battle of the Wall. I might not even put it above the Battle of the Blackwater, but that's up for debate. It might literally be number 2.
Okay.
Um, but meanwhile at the bottom we have Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken. I think without question the worst episode of the show up to this point, such so that I am tempted to call it a bad episode of television. It's the only thing that saves it is Littlefinger has his maneuvering with Cersei when he returns to King's Landing. And then like you kind of have the High Sparrows arrest of Loras and Marjorie. That's kind of entertaining too. But everything else was like a complete loss. We have Jaime and Bronn having that horrendous fight with the Sand Snakes. It's just ludicrously terrible. Tyrion and Jorah traveling and all that stuff with them and like getting captured by the slavers. It's just so bad. And then like, Arya's stuff, it does have a good payoff with Mary Trant, but like until you get to that, it's like all her stuff with the House of Black and White is pretty dull. And then Sansa's marriage and rape at the hands of Ramsay. It's just like, man,
That's brutal.
it's a brutal episode of television, not a good one.
And we established with your number 1 just now. It's something being brutal to watch does not make it bad.
Right.
But it has to have like thematic payoff and build up and whatever. None of which Sansa's very past.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I fully agree with that because they try to pay it off, but the direction that character goes, it's just you don't like that direction.
Sure.
And I don't really know what to expect in the book, so I'm not as upset about it, but I'm very curious to find out what Sansa does instead of going to Winterfell to get raped.
Well, I'm very excited to see how you react to the Dornish stuff in the books.
That has something to do with Sansa?
No.
No.
Because it's a lot more complicated. Well, because the 2 big, massive plot points that they cut was all the Dornish stuff and POVs, and then all the Ironborn stuff and POVs. And actually, I think that you're gonna like the Ironborn stuff just based on like traditional character types that you like. I think you're gonna be more interested in the Ironborn stuff than I am.
Well, I'm definitely interested in seeing this version of whatever that guy's name is.
Euron. Yeah. But then in terms, and that's all Feast for Crows stuff. But then in terms of the Dornish stuff, you've called yourself.
Well, at least it'll all be new.
Enlightened reader. So I think you will also appreciate it.
So I celebrate the opportunity to get new content.
And based on your reaction to the season, I am not super confident. I think you'll think some of the stuff for Dany's arc is better, but I think you're still going to
I sure fucking hope so.
Dragged out. It helps to be able to be in her head, but
that's probably true.
Yeah, you're probably going to be like, can we get to Westeros, please?
It's much better, much more interesting land than that desert. Number 9 is Kill the Boy. That's episode 5. Not a solid episode, but it is lacking in standout moments. This is where Daenerys escalates things in Meereen in return for Barristan's death, but then ultimately backs off and agrees to open the fighting pits. It's also the true beginning of Missandei's romantic relationship with Grey Worm, so that's a plus.
Oh yeah, we skimmed over all that, but
well, it happens pretty fast.
Yeah, I love them together.
Jon formalizes his decision to save the wildlings in this episode. Ramsay gets the news about Roos's upcoming son in this episode, and Sansa gets the news about Theon in this episode. Mm-hmm. And then this is where Stannis and his forces depart Castle Black, and Jorah contracts grayscale. There's kind of a lot of setup in this episode, really. Not a ton of excitement. Episode 8, or my number 8, I have episode 7, which is The Gift. Another pretty solid episode, but that is unfortunately dragged down by one of the worst scenes in history of the show, with Bronn having to get saved by the quote-unquote hot sand snake in the Dornish cells.
Oh my god.
Countering that is the build and payoff of Cersei's arrest at the hands of the High Sparrow, which is brilliantly done. Elsewhere, we also get the death of Maester Aemon, which is a good moment. Ramsay thwarting Sansa's efforts to escape from him. Sam finally getting laid. Tyrion meeting Daenerys, and Stannis playing George Washington at the Valley Forge.
I still stand by the fact that Sam and Gilly are the only healthy couple in this entire universe.
I don't know. I like how you say that like it's some controversial hot take.
Oh, I take that back. This isn't a book thing, because she's, 11 in the books? But Missandei and Grey Worm are also healthy.
Number 7 is episode 4, The Sons of the Harpy. Not the flashiest episode in the world, but it actually does have some impressive depth. Biggest standout is Stannis' heartfelt and tragic conversation with Shireen about, him doing everything he could to save her from the Grayskull. Kind of their best moment together. And then what else here? Sir Barristan's Noble 6S Glass Stand. Also in this episode. It also gives us the rise of the High Sparrow and the arrest of Loras Tyrell, which obviously sets up my favorite story arc of the show. Unfortunately, we also get Tyrion annoying Jorah as they sail for Marine and the debut of the Sand Snake, so this is far from their worst point, I pointed out. As well as this weird scene where Melisandre tries to seduce Jon Snow. So, like much of season 5, then it's uneven, but the highs outweigh the lows.
See, and you find her sexy, so that's still, like, you love him and you find her sexy, and you're still grossed out by that.
Well, it's just
So
so,
it makes you
like,
feel-
weird. It's just, I don't know. I guess it makes sense that I guess it kind of makes sense for her character to find somebody that doesn't work on.
I'll just go ahead and say it, because there's no payoff in the books yet, so I'm
Okay.
gonna go ahead and give you my theory. It makes sense if she's trying to make a shadow baby.
Well, maybe she was. My number 6 is episode 3, High Sparrow, another episode that is Jon Snow being awesome. This is where he executes Janos Slynt. He also refuses Stannis' offer to make him Warden of the North and asks when he will be leaving, in case you didn't know that he is in charge. Elsewhere, Arya meets with the Waif, which for the first time, depending on how you feel about the Waif, that's cool. Littlefinger and Sansa arrive at Winterfell, where she meets the Boltons. Marjorie is married to Tommen and rubs her victory in Cersei's face, which unfortunately leads to Cersei's elevation of the High Sparrow, and then Tyrion is abducted by Jorah. That's number 6. Number 5 is episode 2, The House of Black and White. More Jon Snow being awesome. This is where he's actually elected as the Lord Commander. And I guess just the fact that I love that scene so much is the main reason that it's up this high. There's like other stuff that's solid, but a lot of this episode is Arya trying to get into the House of Black and White, which is a little on the dull side. Jaime beginning his trip to Dorne, so it's not horrible yet, but it's the beginning of what is not a very good arc. We have, oh god, Mosador's killing of the son of the Harpy prisoner and subsequent execution.
I'll just never remember Malsador's name.
I know. And then Cersei exercising control over the small council, but with the notable exception of Kevin Lannister. And then number 4, I have episode 1, The Wars to Come, which is, again, like really carried by the last 10 minutes where Jon Snow kills Mance Rayder. It's an amazing sequence.
That's one. There's a few where I can like put myself back in my parents' bedroom, like seeing it for the first time and like what I felt. And I just remember the feeling in my chest when he did that.
Well, I remember Brandon, that was one of his bigger reactions too, for sure. Beyond that extreme high point, we have Littlefinger and Sansa leaving the Vale, Cersei and Jaime mourning their father at the beginning of the Sons of the Harpy crap in Marine, and Tyrion's boring travel to Marine. So all these episodes, almost all of them, have their negative points. Number 3, though, this is where these top 3 are pretty great. Number 3, I have Hardhome, obviously dominated by its namesake, and rightly so. It's definitely, I would say, one of the more memorable and obviously well-received sequences of the show. It's definitely one that I remember. It's kind of a defining moment for season 5. It's like season 5 is the one with Hardhome in it. So we don't need to talk about that anymore, but it's really great stuff. But it's pretty slow beyond that, but it doesn't really matter because that's like half the episode. So yeah, you give it a lot of credit for that. It does have Daenerys having some boring scenes with Tyrion. But it also has Septa Unella's building rivalry with Cersei and the Boltons preparing for battle and Ollie steeling himself for what he feels must be done with Jon Snow.
For me, the histories of Daenerys and Tyrion's characters are enough to make me sucked into those scenes.
Maybe the first time.
I mean, I don't know. I don't vividly remember watching them this time. And maybe I didn't. Maybe I was taking a quiz or something. But
yeah, that's true.
Miss some stuff.
They're not very good, I should tell you. Episode 2, I still have episode 9, The Dance of Dragons, at number 2. It's the first time that episode 9 is not number 1, but it's close. Number 2. 4 seasons of straight bangers at the penultimate episode. Season 5's version is definitely the worst. It's dragged down by the awful Dornish plot that we've discussed. And then the grand finale, Marine, just doesn't, I don't think, hit as hard as the showrunners clearly wanted it to. I bet they spent a lot of money on that. But it still ranks in the upper echelon of Game of Thrones thanks to the Baratheon clan, who once again steal the show with Stannis' desperation and madness, ultimately driving him to allow Melisandre to burn Shireen as a sacrifice to the Lord of Light.
Hmm.
It's an impeccable scene in every. Well, she that's wrote here that Shireen is impeccable in every scene, but I talked about
I wonder if she's done interviews since then. Like,
Sure.
how did they not traumatize that girl?
But then I think she's
How
older
old
than you
is
think.
she?
She's probably, I don't know, 13 or something when she did that scene.
Talented actress.
Yeah. But yeah, we already talked about how I think Selyse is just unbelievable in that sequence.
Yeah, I'm curious how you're gonna rank her.
I know. I'm looking forward to get to my characters as well. It'll be right after this. And then finally, we also see Arya give up on her assassination of the Thin Man to go after Marion Trent, who unwittingly enters her crosshairs. But it's
Yeah.
not until the next episode where we get the payoff for that. And then number one is obviously Mother's Mercy. It's just clearly the best episode. I don't think like I said, I don't think it quite rises level of the Red Wedding, Battle of the Wall in terms of like standout moments, but just like the sheer number of distinct quality sequences in a row. Like we have like the Battle of the Blackwater or the Battle of the Wall. Like all those are really awesome, and I think ultimately better. But they're all in one place, Whereas this is like everything it's one of those episodes where there's a lot of stuff going on, like most of them, but they're all just like firing on all cylinders at once. There's the obviously all Stannis' fall, the Theon's turn in Winterfell, Arya's assassination of Meryn Trant, Myrcella's death, Cersei's Walk of Atonement, and the assassination of Jon Snow all in an hour.
Yeah.
It's like crazy. So that's my number one.
Okay.
So all we have left, which is always, I feel like your most anticipated list is the characters.
Yeah, because when I'm watching something with you, I can kind of feed off your energy and get an idea of which episodes you like more. And we talk about like moments as they happen or after we watch, but characters, I mean, seeing those relative to each other, that's something that, like, I know you love Jon Snow.
Right.
I know you hate the Sand Snakes, but
Which technically Jon Snow, he would be number one here, but
like,
I didn't write him for
things like
reasons.
sure. Well, hold on.
I know, yeah, you're right, but it's just whatever. I didn't write him.
Andrew forgot to write him, but he's number one. So bump all these up,
There you
folks.
go. So if you count Jon Snow, we have 49 characters.
It's just because he died so late.
If you count Jon Snow, we have 49 characters. If you don't, we have 48. And we do have a new last place. Number 48, Massador from Marine. I didn't think I would do it. I didn't think I would actually put somebody below Jojen Reed. But I have to admit, Massador does absolutely nothing to earn himself a spot even above Jojen. He comes out of nowhere, only to be killed publicly by Daenerys for killing her prisoner. It's a stupid sequence, a stupid action by Daenerys, a stupid storyline, and a character that you literally do not care at all about.
I don't think that actor's been tainted for you forever. Like, he's like, I don't know. He looks 8 in Love Actually.
The Massador character? Or are you talking about
Jojen? Jojen. I wonder, like, if watching that, you just be like, oh, this despicable little kid that everyone loves. Blah.
Probably.
Maze Runner. He's like, I liked him in Maze Runner, but I bet your Jojen bias would make you just disgusted by him.
Well, he's not last place anymore, but he is my number 47, Miss Jojen Reed. And 46, you're gonna think it's crazy for me to have him above Jojen Reed, but I was like, realistically, I derive more entertainment in whatever small quantities from this man than Jojen Reed.
This is someone I didn't know already?
Yeah, it's a new entry. 46 is Hizdar Zolorek.
Well,
I have him above Jojen Reed. Brandon's last place. He's still an F tier character.
I disagree with that.
He has a little more depth than Massador, but only a little.
The fact that this man gets to marry...
He doesn't. They don't actually go through with it. They're just betrothed. I guess,
right.
You could argue that it's a little bit of a twist with his character that he is actually not. Because, like, the first time I watched this, I was like, there's no question this guy is not a traitor that is working with these Arpies. And then the fact that I guess he isn't is, that's something. That's subverting your expectations.
The thing is that the show takes away all the other suspects. So it's not like, oh, who's the traitor? It's like, is this one person a traitor? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
And honestly, I'm to the point where I think he might have actually been a better character if he had been the traitor. But he wasn't. But it was still, as much as I dislike him, I enjoyed his presence. I even just like flaming on him more than Jojen. Like Jojen to me is just television death. His Lorak is a bad character that we can all agree sucks, and there's something to that.
All right.
45, I have Roz. You know I hate her. 44, I have Craster. 43, a new arrival. I have Miranda, Ramsey's lover. Not a lot to say about Miranda.
Yeah.
Outside of her toxic relationship with Ramsey, but I do think it's interesting that he does kind of seem to actually care about her on some level, which is adds an interesting edge to his character. But other than that, and how shockingly thin that actress is, there's not a lot to grab onto with her. Is it a little joke there? Not a lot to grab onto. Anyway, 42 is
you write that out?
Yeah, 42 is Marcella Baratheon, another new character.
Oh, hard.
I was a little sad. I did think it was a little sad to put her this low because I do like her final scene with Jaime, but realistically, outside of that final scene, we just don't spend enough time with her to warrant placing her any higher.
I think there might be a little bit of a pretty privilege with how much I like her.
What privilege?
Pretty privilege. Like she is just
her
such
actress is very pretty. Yes,
like Disney princess. Like, and she's sweet and
yeah.
So it's just like, oh, here's a little breath of traditional fantasy in this world of blah.
Oh, that's nice. But I do think her importance to both of her parents, particularly Cersei, continues to be a driving force of good content in the show, even though she's usually not present for any of this.
Yeah.
41, I have Rast. 40, Carl Tanner. 39.
Below Rast, the sweetly.
Yeah, because I enjoy his little rivalry with Ghost.
Okay.
And he gets Ghost and ends up actually getting to kill him, which I don't know, I enjoyed that. 39, Viserys, not from House of the Dragon. Shitty Viserys. I do eventually want to combine the House of the Dragon characters and put them on here too.
Oof, I would struggle.
Viserys would do very well.
Not that I even have a list for this, but
38, Stone Snake. 37, Garrett. 36, Jory Cassell. He's probably a little inflated, quite frankly, but I liked the book version of him.
Yeah, we should remind our listeners that it's whichever is higher, right. Book or show.
Those are all book
and
reasons.
That gets a little dubious now that we're way ahead on the show than you are with the books. But
yeah, that is true. But I still got it for the ones that their arcs are done in the book. That's what we're going with here. 35, I have Meryn Trant.
Sir Meryn Trant.
One of the most grotesquely evil men in Westeros who enjoys beating and raping underage girls.
Several spots above Craster.
Yes. Well, he lays his hands on Sansa in season 2 at the behest of Joffrey. But it's actually the killing of Syrio Forel that earns him the first spot on Arya's list and one of her most satisfying kills. It's really just how much I enjoy seeing him get killed that puts him this high. And the fact that he's such a joke for that. Those are 35. 34, I have Janos Slynt, another new arrival. Maybe the most like snivelly shit heel on the show. He is pathetic in every sense of the word, I would say. But that said, watching the heroes of the show like Tyrion and Sam and Jon Snow get the better end of him and pay him back for his season 1 betrayal of Ned Stark is consistently satisfying through to his death.
It's interesting how he thinks he's going to go to the wall and have all these privileges because of where he comes from, and then he does. That's how the system of the wall works. It's if you go in privileged, you're gonna have it's not like a John's ideal of it where bastards can climb to the top. They can, but you still go in with your previous station mattering.
Yeah,
and he's an interesting example of that.
33, I have Lysa Arryn. 32, I have Locke. Show exclusive, perhaps, now that I'm getting to that point of the book. 31, Kaholo. 30, Pip. 29, another new arrival. This is Carsey, the wildling mother from Hardhome.
Some respect in Carsey's
Only
name
one episode
that I just learned.
But her little arc there of agreeing to work with Jon Snow in order to protect her daughter's future, only to be killed in turn by the Night King. She escapes the fighting. It's good stuff.
And then is resurrected as what?
Right, I mentioned it. I mean, we never see her again. That would be cool if you actually saw people.
No, I think we do see her rise.
Yeah, we do, but I just mean in future episodes, it would be cool.
Oh,
if
sure.
you actually saw people in the army of the dead that you recognized.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we do, and we just didn't notice.
I bet Andor would do that. 38, we have Krasnus. I'm just very entertained by him. 37, Dalbridge, The Night's Watch. 36, Roderick Cassell. 35, Shay. It's me giving her a lot of credit for my first watch through because
couldn't even remember her name when we were talking earlier. I haven't been watching as many Song of Ice and Fire videos, but that's a little damning.
24, Khal Drogo. 23, Commander Mormont. 22, Grin. 21, Sirio Farrell. 20, Corrin Halfhand. 19, Egret. 18, a new arrival, Mance Rayder. Not the flashiest character in the world, but he does make for a unique leader of the wildlings.
Doesn't
which
do enough
is
singing.
A notoriously wild and violent people. But in contrast, he is soft-spoken. He treats his prisoners well.
He's a unifier.
Right. I might like him even more in the book, depending on where that character goes. I like that he's a bard.
Absolutely.
His stubbornness ultimately gets him killed, but it's always interesting when he's on screen and interacting with Jon Snow in particular. And then, yeah, like I said, bonus points for the book version where he's bard, but I haven't finished that
probably
arc
wouldn't
yet.
be able to take him seriously as a bard, but
I guess.
could have done some really cool stuff with that.
17, I have Yoren. 16, Talisa Stark. Put some respect on her name.
Oh.
15, Renly Baratheon. 14, a new arrival, Barristan Selmy.
Oh. The old bull.
Definitely boosted in his standing on my list based on his standing with seemingly everybody else in the world of Game of Thrones. He's the first man we see Jaime Lannister show respect to, and this is whenever he's at his most villainous too. He's feared as perhaps the greatest swordsman alive. Ned says in season 1, "No one could question your honor." And yet he notes later in life that he has mostly only served tyrants and goes to Daenerys with the hope of serving someone better for once.
Yeah, he'd be a cool head to get into.
He always counsels restraint with her, but he ultimately dies in appropriately badass and heroic fashion, fighting for her against the gutter trash that is the Sons of the Harpy, ultimately saving Grey Worm. I really like his important context for Rhaegar, as he knew him better than really anybody else that we interact with.
Sure.
And it makes me very interested to see how he would have reacted to Daenerys' actions later on. And perhaps tragically, if he could have had some bearing on that.
Yeah.
So, it's a really cool character.
Really tragic.
13. It might seem low to you, but I feel like I'm giving her some good respect here. 13 is Shireen Baratheon.
Oh, Shireen. Below her mother.
Yeah.
Wow.
Shireen, like I said, so she's not the flashiest character in the world. She has played with a ton of heart and ends up the focal point of several extremely key scenes with her father Stannis, including one where she asks if she's ashamed of her, and he tells the story of how he stopped at nothing to save her life from Grayscale. And of course, the scene where he betrays her, and really himself, by allowing Melisandre to burn her at the stake. But beyond these, her relationship with Davos continues to ground that character as well. And then I just make the point that Shireen is a character that manages to improve the depth of every character she interacts with.
Which is beautiful. If she had not taught Davos how to read, Jon Snow would be dead earlier than he is dead now.
All right, early.
Stannis would never have come.
Yeah, that's true.
Swooped in and saved him.
That's true. But yes, right above her, I have number 12, Selyse Baratheon. And I think that probably for most people's lists, like 99 out of 100, Shireen probably beats her.
Well, it's not a likability list, obviously.
Right. I give the edge to the mother for being, I think, the deeper and ultimately more surprising character.
Yeah.
You think you have her figured out early on, but her surprise turn at the end as she tries in vain to save her daughter from her death is incredibly touching, and just in that single moment reframes everything you thought you knew about this woman who basically sacrificed everything in her life in the name of the Lord of Light, and really only ever got pain and anguish in return. So there's a case to be made the most tragic character in the entire show.
Wow. It's certainly tragic. And, you know, whether you view the Lord of Light as a cult or a religion says something about how much she was taken over by it.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder who she was outside of that, how much doubt she had the whole time that she was suppressing.
Yeah, exactly. All that. It's just totally reframed in that scene. It's awesome.
Because, like, I tend to, like, sometimes religions or cults do very terrible things, but they're also really brilliant at indoctrinating people and getting them to do their will. So I tend to put a lot less blame on the individuals that fell into that trap than the system as a whole, or the people that set up that system, so cult leaders or whatever. And she's an interesting case where we, for most of it, absolutely put it all on her. We're like, gosh, she's just the biggest bitch, whatever. And she's certainly flawed, no matter how you look at it, like her views of her daughter being a failure or whatever. But a lot of that is tied to the expectation society has put on her to produce an heir, and how like society would view her as a failure in terms of only popping out Shireen, who does have a birth defect, or not birth, but from young age, and how she's not coping well with these losses of her 3 sons that she's got in jars.
That's for sure.
You're right. She's definitely a deeper character than Shireen. She's obviously less likable, but there's more to pick apart there. But I like what you said about Shireen, how she amplifies everyone around her.
That's very impressive.
And she's such a light in the darkness.
Yes.
She is the light in the darkness. Not the Lord of Light.
Okay, and so 11, kicked out of the top 10. Joffrey Baratheon.
Oh, Joff.
Number 10, though, this just never ceases to amaze me every time I get up there. But if I'm being honest with how much I enjoyed this character, the brief time that we had with him, I think it's accurate. Number 10 is Courtney Penrose. I just love that. That's my favorite chapter in the books.
Yeah.
So 9, and then 9, Maester Crescent, also because of the books.
Sure.
8, Maester Lewin.
Oh, we're big Maester fans in this house.
Number 7,
Maester Aemon. There it is. I don't have a hard time ranking even my favorite Maesters.
Well, there you have. Those have to be my 3 favorite Maesters. I guess if you count Sam, and he's probably number 1.
Sam's not a Maester, Andrew.
He leaves to become a Maester in this season.
Oh, he does. All right. Well done.
Number 7 is Maester Aemon. I don't know if he enhances all the characters around him, but he definitely steals every scene that he's in.
What about Maester Pycelle?
Yeah, below these. It's just impressive.
What about Maester Jason Qyburn?
I do love him. I don't think I'd put him above Aemon, but I don't know. I'd think about it.
Ranking.
It's very impressive how he just steals all these scenes, considering how old and frail he is. He's somewhat of a Master Yoda to Sam and John's young Luke. He passes
much better advice than Yoda.
He passes on his wisdom in bits and spurts over the course of the first 5 seasons of the show, and is there for some of the greatest moments at the Wall, including most notably casting the deciding vote for Jon Snow as the 998th Lord Commander. He also serves as a great foreshadowing tool for Jon Snow's own heritage, revealed later in the show. And
his reveal that he's a Targaryen.
Yeah, that's back in season 1.
That's an all-time moment.
It's in my moments as well. Number 6. He's fallen on hard times. Number 6, Robb Stark.
Oh, Robb Stark.
Number 5, I have Oberyn Martell. He did quite well on this list. 4, I have Catelyn Stark, and she could go up from the books.
Sure.
Right now she's at 4. So there's really just one character left. It's obviously Stannis Baratheon. Now, I'll just go ahead and say Ned Stark is still number 1. So previously my number 2 was Tywin Lannister.
Yeah, you said before we started recording that you were going back and forth.
It was really tough for me to decide between Stannis and Tywin. I'm still not 100% confident in my decision.
Okay.
But what I decided to do is I was going to have a moment off. I was like, I'm going to line up all of the top moments that I've listed over the course of these episodes that involve Stannis. And I'm going to line up all the ones that involve Tywin. And I'm just going to match them up. I'm going to use math to help me decide. And
this could change as we read more of the book.
That's true. But I added up.
If either passes the show version.
I added up all of them. I gave point totals. Like for S tier moment, they got 5. For an A tier moment, they got 4.5. For a B tier moment, they got 4. I didn't go any lower than that.
Because right now, both of them, the show version is your superior one right now, right?
Yeah. And so I added up all those moments together through math, the power of math.
Power of math.
And they were 100% tied.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So I was just like, wow. So they are truly neck and neck.
That's amazing.
They're basically a tie.
Fascinating.
But in the end, if I looked back on how much I enjoy their presence on screen, consistently. I had to give it to Tywin, so Stannis is number 3.
That was my guess, is what you're gonna do.
And so I think there's a lot.
And part of it is you talk about loving the Lannisters so much, and you like always say Tywin's a big deal with that. Never heard you say you love the Baratheons.
Yeah, that's true. It's just Stannis. Well, I mean, I like his core family.
Yeah.
But yeah, Stannis, he definitely has a more stoic presence than Tywin, although Tywin is pretty stoic himself. But it leaves him feeling, I think when you first see Stannis, it kind of leaves him feeling a little one note. But I think that when you dig a little deeper, he's actually one of the deepest characters in all of the show. Unloved by all but Sir Davos and Maester Crescent and his family.
Which is such a great way to introduce him with Crescent, like the one person that loved him because he needed it the most. Or like, he loved him most. He raised all the kids, but Stannis is the unloved one, and so he loved him the most. And you get to see him from this very charitable point of view.
Yes.
Before you see him burning people at the stake.
Right. But and so it is his thirst for power that ultimately drives him to increasingly more dastardly deeds throughout the show.
Well, and you could argue that it's not his thirst for power, but it's his sense of duty that he's supposed to step up and take this power because of the way of things.
Well, I mean, he's part of that, but I think he wants to be the king. I don't think he would go to all that depth if he didn't have some lust for power.
It's interesting. There's some quote about like there's no man that wouldn't do certain things if the crown was in their grasp. Maybe it has the dragon thing. I can't remember I was very far off just now in quoting it.
Well, thank you for bringing it up.
But typically, when they talk about Stannis, people frame it as like it's all about the duty.
Yeah, I reject that, but
I think that's cool.
Yeah, his increasingly darker deeds culminate with the sacrifice of his own daughter, which ultimately seals his fate, as his men and even Melisandre depart him prior to the last stand against the Boltons. Yeah, you get the feeling with Stannis that things could have gone differently had Melisandre not, taken his ear, and that maybe left to his own devices, he could have held things together, and he could have made peace with Renly, and he could have been like a actual good father to his daughter, and he could have welcomed Robert's bastard Gendry into the fold and like commanded the respect of his men, and
you wonder why I hate Melisandre.
And he even led well under the guidance of the ever honorable Sir Davos and Maester Crescent, if he would have just heeded their advices.
He was so rigid. I don't know that he could have worked with Renly once he took he was trying to take what he thought was rightfully his.
Yeah, that is a tough one. That's true.
I would have loved it.
But certainly if he could have built upon his strengths, he could have been a force to be reckoned with and a force for good at that.
And Azor Ahai.
That is not the path that he takes. And despite all the glimpses of respectability he gives us across his 4 seasons on screen, his character is left beaten, humiliated, and alone. And we're left wondering what if.
Mm-hmm. Tywin did not have a chance of that. His mom did or I'm sorry, not his mom. His mom died. I'm actually going to stop because I don't want to spoil it for you if you don't know this.
Okay. So yeah, the number 2 is Tywin. Number 1, Ned Stark. Those are my characters as it stands today.
Show Ned. So top 3 all show versions.
Yeah. That's true.
Who was 4?
4. Catelyn Stark.
So
I haven't really differentiated between them.
Interesting.
Show Catelyn Stark has my favorite moments, but her chapters are consistently very good.
Hmm.
It's got both.
So not just basic choices over here, folks. Okay, he's a Catelyn lover too. He's a nuanced man.
No. That's it for Game of Thrones Season 5. Hope you enjoyed that, found something illuminating, at the very least satisfying to listen to if you're a fan of the show.
I had fun. I was worried that this was going to be
well, because you're kind of a Season 5 hater.
Well, it just kind of plants some seeds for things to go downhill, some butterfly effect stuff.
Well, I did really struggle with, because I'm such a Jon Snow fan, when I watched it the first time, I love Season 5.
Mm-hmm.
I still really like it a lot. Also, obviously, I love Game of Thrones, so really I enjoy all the seasons, even Season 2, which I think is definitely the worst.
Very interesting.
But
even though it has one of your favorite episodes.
Yeah, that's true. which definitely helps. Um, but I thought so. I definitely with the ranking right now, season 4 I think is unquestionably number 1. And then, kind of surprisingly, I think I have season 1 at number 2. I just was really impressed by season 1 on when I did my analysis of it. So at least 3, 5, and 2. And if once again, if I use the math, take an average, they're literally all tied.
Mm.
But I know I like season 2 the least, so I have it at the bottom.
Okay.
I thought that I would put season 5 at 3 because it did have more standout moments than season 3. But what put me over the edge of giving it to season 3 at number 3 is when I line up the episodes themselves, like the top 20 episodes of Game of Thrones so far, or the 50 I have ranked. Season 3 just absolutely wipes the floor with season 5.
Interesting.
Because like if you look at, I actually have those right here. So in the top 20, season 5 has Hard Home, it has The Dance of Dragons, and it has obviously Mother's Mercy, which I do currently have at 3.
Okay.
So that's higher than anything in season 3. Even my number 4 spot, which is The Reigns of Castamere right now. But season 3 has a lot more going on. Season 3, they don't have, neither of them have anything else in the top 10, so I had to look at the top 20. Season 3 has my number 12 spot, which is Dark Wings and Dark Words. It has my number 13 spot, which is Now His Watch Is Ended. It has my number 14 spot, which is The Climb. So that all combined to make me give season 3 the edge.
Okay.
So it goes from the bottom, season 2, season 5, season 3, season 1, season 4.
Very interesting.
I do think it will be like right now. Like my favorite stuff is in season 6. My
I know.
highest highs are in season 6 for sure. Will it be as consistently great as season 4? Season 4 is just amazing start to finish.
Yeah, I'm very curious where season 6 is going to land for you.
I am also curious about that. So we'll definitely look forward to a season 6 episode and figuring out once and for all where it ranks among the lineage.
But I did have a lot of fun talking with you once we warmed into it.
Right. I don't
got over some of the negative stuff.
Well, that's good. I don't know if season 6, I think we've already kind of decided that season 6 episode is not going to be the next episode of the podcast, because by the time we record another one, The Last of Us will be ending. And we'll wipe our asses with that piece of garbage.
I'm a little more positive on that one than Andrew is. He is kind of giving me a lesson with watching Last of Us season 2 about how I reacted to the last watch through for Game of Thrones. Because I think I pointed out some of the flaws that maybe he didn't immediately recognize and brought it down for him. And now he is dragging down Last of Us season 2 for me.
And then we were also watching Andor, so there's a possibility that we could talk about those seasons as well.
We should. It's a masterpiece.
Yeah, this masterpiece.
Let us know if you're interested.
But for now, if you enjoy the show and you want to hear more from us, you can subscribe, follow, like, review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And remember, you can write into the show for any reason. Have your comments read on the air at ControlledBurnes with an ES at gmail.com. For now, until next time, keep it warm.
Keep it warm.
Thank you.